However, when Luo Jin thought about it, he was shocked by Xiaoyan's terrifying strength. He had already experienced the might of this meteoric flame mysterious metal. However, even so, it was still moved by Xiaoyan with a single hand. It must be said that Xiaoyan's strength was truly frightening. Battle chi, alchemy and body refinement. This guy is really a pure monster. If such a person were to become his training goal, it was likely that there would be no need for him to continue training in the future. At this moment, Luo Jin's heart was speechless for quite a while. He sighed emotionally in his heart and ceased thinking about it. After all, if he were to compete with a monster like Xiaoyan, it was likely that he would only extinguish his desire to train. May I know if Brother Luo Jin is proficient in the art of weapon refinement? Suddenly, Xiaoyan's voice was transmitted into Luo Jin's ears. Luo Jin's expression was slightly startled. Only then did Luo Jin react. Repair and smelting were two completely different forging techniques. Even though Xiaoyan had a powerful spiritual strength, he was still helpless in this aspect. Luo Jin smiled awkwardly before opening his mouth to speak. I will not hide it from Brother Yan. Since young, I have devoted all my attention to training. Therefore, I am really unable to learn the art of weapon refinement. Hearing this, Xiaoyan's eyebrows furrowed slightly. If this was the case, the restoration of the heavy Shen ruler would likely be far in the future. The art of weapon refinement was different from alchemy. Even though both involved spiritual strength and the heavenly flame, if one were to really differentiate them, the difference was not small. An alchemist merged the energy of heaven and earth into a medicinal pill with the goal of saving people. On the other hand, a weapon refiner refined divine objects into sharp blades with the goal of killing. Therefore, just by looking at the essence of the two, they were already completely opposite. It was not easy to converge. When Luo Jin saw the worried expression on Xiaoyan's face, the corners of his mouth lifted into a comfortable smile as he opened his mouth to speak. Brother Yanxiao, there is no need to worry. Even though I do not know the art of weapon refinement, it does not mean that others do not. Xiaoyan's eyes instantly brightened as he abruptly lifted his head to stare at Luo Jin. His expression was extremely fervent. That gaze of his could not wait to see through Luo Jin, so that Luo Jin could no longer keep him in suspense. The corners of his mouth twitched slightly as his neck involuntarily shrank back. His throat rolled as he emitted a guji sound. His mouth parted into a smile before Luo Jin hurriedly opened his mouth to speak. That person is in the ancient savage city. People call him Old Luo. He should be able to restore this huge ruler of yours. Hearing this, Xiaoyan's emotions finally calmed down. However, deep within his pupils, there was still a fervent glow flickering. The matter of the heavy Shen ruler had temporarily come to an end. Xiaoyan also turned his gaze towards the distant horizon. That was the direction of the ancient savage city. Brother Yanxiao, are you planning to head to the ancient savage city next? The corners of Xiaoyan's mouth curled into a faint smile. A cold glint flashed across his eyes as he smiled faintly and said, I was originally planning to head to the ancient savage city. Moreover, there is someone waiting for me there, so I can't find another person. Moreover, the heavy Shen ruler still needs to be repaired. This time, I will go to the ancient savage city and settle everything in one go. The expression in his eyes flickered slightly. When Xiaoyan mentioned that there was someone waiting for him, he could naturally hear the cold, killing intent hidden within his words. He could not help but feel pity for that person in his heart. Of all people to provoke, he had to provoke this monster beside him. Changing the topic, Luo Jin once again opened his mouth to ask, Brother Yanxiao, I wonder if you are going this time around to participate in the Alchemist Grand Meeting that is held once every 5 years? If that is the case, then I think that this year's Alchemist Grand Meeting will be quite interesting. Xiaoyan's eyebrows twitched slightly when he heard this. He looked at Luo Jin with some astonishment and asked, Alchemist Grand Meeting? I wonder if an Emperor Tier pill formula will appear? Luo Jin's expression was slightly startled. Following which, the corner of his mouth twitched. Emperor Tier pill formula, do you think this is the middle region? Emperor Tier pill formulas are so worthless. Luo Jin glanced at Xiaoyan with a strange expression. He was somewhat speechless in his heart. He curled his lips before opening his mouth and saying, the Emperor Tier pill formula, not to mention the southern region border, I'm afraid that even the southern region prefecture city does not have it. Xiaoyan frowned slightly. The expression on his face also changed a little. It was obvious that he was very surprised by Luo Jin's answer. Without waiting for Xiaoyan to ask, Luo Jin continued, in this place the highest grade pill formula is probably only a Tier 3 medicinal pill formula. A Tier 3 medicinal pill formula, huh? Looks like even in this place an Emperor Tier pill formula is unique in this world. Although there is no Emperor Tier pill formula, it is said that the winner of this pill gathering will obtain a remnant of a Tier 6 medicinal pill formula. Chapter 82. Although there is no God Tier pill formula, it is said that if someone is able to obtain first place in the alchemy gathering, they will be able to obtain a remnant pill formula for a Tier 6 pill. Luo Jin's voice was especially heavy when he spoke of a Tier 6 pill. It felt as though he was purposely trying to arouse the interest in Xiaoyan's heart. Oh, a Tier 6 pill formula, huh? Although it is a remnant, as long as one makes good use of it, one might be able to comprehend and refine a new type of pill. Xiaoyan was surprised at first. Soon after, he softly chuckled and said with a faint smile. Using a pill formula to comprehend the pill Tao was a method that alchemists often used to grow. Often this method would allow an alchemist to improve by quite a bit. For most alchemists, this was indeed an extremely good way to grow. Just like the grade 8 alchemist's lifetime comprehension that Xiaoyan had left behind for Lu Xiang before he left the Lu clan. There were many insights on the pill Tao contained within. If Lu Xiang was able to carefully comprehend it, it would bring endless benefits to his pill Tao. Xiaoyan narrowed his eyes as flames flickered and danced deep within his pupils. Xiaoyan was definitely going to participate in this alchemist gathering. So it's like this. In that case, let me meet the alchemists of the Yuanwu continent. Ever since Xiaoyan had become an emperor, he had not had the opportunity to find an alchemist of similar strength to compete with him. This made Xiaoyan feel somewhat depressed in his heart. Now that he had such an opportunity, Xiaoyan would naturally not miss it. He let out a long roar towards the sky. The pride in his bones borrowed the momentum to charge into the sky. His aura shot into a long rainbow. That mighty aura pierced through the sky. Haha, looks like Brother Yan Xiao is already determined to participate in this alchemist gathering. Since that is so, I will take my leave first. If there is an opportunity in the future, Luo Jin will definitely cooperate with Brother Yan Xiao. Luo Jin also had confidence in his heart when he saw Xiaoyan's heroic spirit soaring to the 9 heavens. Hence, he did not speak any further and directly opened his mouth to speak. Oh, Brother Luo Jin, are you not going to take a look at the ancient wilderness city? Xiaoyan was also surprised that Luo Jin did not go to the ancient city of savage desolation. Luo Jin smiled faintly and said, I, Luo Jin, will naturally go and watch Brother Yan Xiao participate in the alchemist grand meeting. However, I currently have some trivial matters to attend to. Therefore, I cannot travel together with Brother Yan. However, I can guarantee you that I will definitely observe from the side when you go up on the stage. Xiaoyan laughed heartily when he heard this. He laughed out loud in a heroic manner. Haha, in that case I will wait for Brother Luo Jin's arrival at the ancient savage city. I also wish Brother Luo Jin a smooth journey and a safe return. The two exchanged a few more pleasantries before Xiaoyan cupped his fists towards Luo Jin and said, Brother Luo Jin, we'll meet again. Brother Yan Xiao, we'll meet again. Xiaoyan's body swiftly flew through the clouds. He flew to the nearest city. Gu, what do you think the thing that Luo Jin used the other day is called? It can actually forcefully teleport someone tens of thousands of miles away. Could it be a teleportation formation? Guyu laughed out loud upon hearing Xiaoyan's words. Clearly he had been seriously hurt by Xiaoyan's words. Xiaoyan laughed in a silly manner like a curious child. His face was filled with confusion as he waited for Guyu's reply. It was a long while later before Guyu slowly suppressed the laughter in his heart. He let out a long sigh and laughed. I'm afraid that you are the only ignorant person in the Yuanwu continent. Haha, teleportation formation. Given that brat's background, why would he use something as small as a teleportation formation? Guyu's words caused Xiaoyan to have a new opinion of Luo Jin. Luo Jin actually had an extraordinary background. Hey, do you think that everyone in the Yuanwu continent can become a half-true emperor at your age? Do you really think that half-true emperors are weak cabbages? Guyu seemed to have anticipated Xiaoyan's inner thoughts. He changed the topic and mentioned Luo Jin's strength. These words caused Xiaoyan to feel a little confused. I'm afraid that kid is just from the central region to train. In the southern region, only the few super forces in the southern region have such a strong background. Don't even think about it. Moreover, what he used that day was not a teleportation formation. You should know that teleportation formations that can teleport people tens of thousands of miles away are fixed and cannot be carried around. Before Xiaoyan could ask any further, Guyu quickly added, that brat used that brat. What that brat used was a boundary-breaking bead, which was condensed by Ensource Venerate with the power of space. It can forcibly break through the void and allow one to travel thousands of miles in an instant. Any force with a Source Venerate will definitely prepare a few for their juniors. Of course, this boundary-breaking bead can't be condensed at will. Even source venerables only have a 1/3 success rate. Moreover, even if one successfully condenses it, it will consume a great amount of energy. Usually, one will need to rest for a few months before they can fully recover. Hence, unless it is a faction with a strong foundation, even if they have an origin venerate, it is very rare for them to refine such an item. After all, no one can guarantee that other factions will not take advantage of their weakness to destroy them. Hence, the production of this boundary-breaking pearl is pitifully low, causing it to be in high demand in the Yuanwu continent. Since that brat was able to easily take it out, it means that the faction he belongs to does not only have one origin venerate. Xiaoyan understood everything after Guyu spoke. Luo Jin's identity was likely extraordinary. It was no wonder that he dared to come here alone to face the cloud-splitting wolf. Xiaoyan's body, which was moving forward, paused. He turned his head and looked at the deep regions of the endless mountain range. There was a spacious dark region at that spot that existed independently of the world. Even the world had difficulty erasing it. That was what was left behind after the angry Buddha lotus flame had completely exploded. The entire area had been forcefully devoured by the power that had erupted from the angry Buddha lotus flame, causing it to completely disappear from this world. As for the endless darkness, it would take at least half a year for it to be completely wiped out. It seems that the angry Buddha lotus flame cannot be casually used in the future. Otherwise, it might really attract the experts of the continent. At that time, I'm afraid that a great deal of trouble will come. Xiaoyan was also extremely shocked in the face of this eruption of the angry Buddha lotus flame after the battle. He did not expect that a man-class Do technique was actually able to unleash such a powerful strength. Even he, the one who controlled it, had difficulty controlling it. Alright, the reason why it is so powerful is because your 3 heavenly flames are too heaven-defying. Additionally, it is naturally difficult for the old me to restrain it. Xiaoyan nodded. He was naturally aware of this. The purifying demonic lotus flame, the nihility devouring flame and the D flame. There was naturally no heavenly flame in this world that was stronger than them. The angry Buddha lotus flame that was formed from 3 heaven-defying items and a monstrous heavenly flame was likely impossible to suppress even if one wanted to. Xiaoyan once again sighed emotionally in his heart. He did not remain any longer. His body moved and he swiftly flew in the direction of the ancient savage city. Chapter 83. Within the endless stream of people, Xiaoyan's body swam from person to person. His gentle turns caused the people around him to be unable to touch his body. Occasionally there would be some cheat codes that would covet Xiaoyan's body. However, they would be suppressed by Xiaoyan with just a thought. Xiaoyan rarely experienced such a bustling city. Training all day long caused Xiaoyan to feel the loneliness of being in the city all by himself. Suddenly, Xiaoyan raised his head and discovered that there were waves of flame energy surging not far in front of him. A trace of interest involuntarily rose in his heart. The corner of his mouth curled as he gently walked over. Although Xiaoyan's actions might appear slow, if one were to observe carefully, one would discover that each step he took would allow him to advance dozens of feet in an invisible manner. The distance of a few streets was covered in the blink of an eye. As he approached, the noise from the crowd revealed some information. Hey, Mu Ling actually wants to compete with young Master Su in alchemy. He is really foolish. Who in Yanluo City does not know that young Master Su is the #1 alchemist in 100 years? This fellow actually wants to compete with young Master Su. He really doesn't know his limits. A strong man from the crowd looked at a skinny man in the middle of the stage. The corner of his mouth was involuntarily lifted into a cold smile. Once the words from his mouth were emitted, everyone present began to echo his words. This endless mockery caused the face of the man in the arena to turn green. His face was filled with unwillingness as he viciously stared at the young man wearing embroidered clothes opposite him. His face was pale and the corner of his mouth carried a mocking smile. If looks could kill, it was likely that the fellow opposite him would have already died a countless number of times under his eyes. Hee, how about it? Do you dare to fight with me? As long as you defeat me, you can take away the glazed essence today. I will also pay for it. Su Zhen was completely unconcerned about Mu Ling's devouring gaze. All he did was to coldly laugh as he spoke. Mu Ling, on the other hand, felt a fury rush to his head when he heard this. The gaze he used to stare at Su Zhen almost spat fire. However, the fury in Mu Ling's heart was extinguished when the aura from Su Zhen's body surged and the pressure that belonged to a Do Zong was revealed. In front of a Do Zong, his strength at the peak of the Do Huang class was nothing. A Do Zong was indeed too strong. When the onlookers felt Su Zhen's aura, they immediately stood up. Young Master Su has advanced to the Do Zone class. Congratulations young Master Su for advancing to the Do Zone class. Congratulations young Master Su for advancing to the Do Zone class. All of a sudden, the already noisy arena became even more heated up like a pot of boiling oil. Xiao Yan, on the other hand, had an indifferent expression as he stood in front of the 1-meter-tall stone stage. The corner of his mouth was lifted into a faint smile as he looked at Mu Ling in the arena. With Xiao Yan's strength, he was naturally able to tell that Mu Ling's spiritual strength was not the least bit inferior to Su Zhen's. If the two of them were to really fight, it was hard to say just who would emerge victorious. Suddenly, the smile on the corner of Xiao Yan's mouth grew even wider. There was an additional approval in his eyes as he looked at Mu Ling. While Su Zhen was accepting the worship of everyone, Mu Ling's voice that was filled with determination was suddenly emitted. Su Zhen, I want to challenge you. We will compete in alchemy on this sky stone stage. The winner will take away the glazed essence. Moreover, the loser will pay for the glazed essence. The content of the competition will be to see who can refine a medicinal pill with better medicinal properties. Su Zhen's dark and cold face disappeared. What replaced it was a friendly expression. The former extended his hand and made an inviting gesture as he smiled warmly. All right. Since Brother Mu Ling has agreed, everyone present here will bear witness. Today I, Su Zhen, will compete with Mu Ling in terms of alchemy skills. In order to prevent any denial, everyone present here will be the judges for today's match. Everything will be decided by you. After Su Zhen's words left his mouth, the crowd once again went into a commotion. Various words flew out and all of them were mocking Mu Ling. Ha, Mu Ling, oh Mu Ling, you really don't know what's good for you. I advise you to admit defeat as soon as possible. Otherwise, you will waste young Master Su's training time and embarrass yourself. At that time you will be so embarrassed, ha. That's right, that's right. Mu Ling, quickly kneel down and admit defeat. If young Master Su is happy, he might really bestow the glazed essence to you, ha. All sorts of insults and mockery were transmitted into Mu Ling's ears from all around, causing his expression to darken. He slowly clenched his fists. Creaking sounds were emitted from between his fingers, revealing his current state of mind. These people are actually so mean. Back then, when my Mu clan was the #1 clan in Yanluo City, they actually had the guts to mock the Mu clan. Which one of them did not have a fawning expression on their faces? Now that a scoundrel is in power and the Mu clan has fallen, these people instantly turned against us. The human heart is truly fickle. Below the stage, Xiao Yan had a reminiscing expression on his face as he looked at Mu Ling in the arena. In the latter, Xiao Yan saw himself from back then. The feeling that Mu Ling gave him was very familiar. On the stone arena in the arena, Mu Ling waved his sleeves. Soon after, a ray of light flashed in front of him. Above Mu Ling's head, a 1-meter-tall 3-legged golden cicada cauldron suddenly smashed down in front of him. When Su Zhen saw this, he coldly chuckled. Evidently, he did not think much of Mu Ling. Cauldron come? Fallen River God Cauldron. Similarly, Su Zhen waved his sleeves and an azure ray of light flashed in front of him. Soon after, a medicinal cauldron that was even more powerful than the 3-legged golden cicada cauldron suddenly smashed down in front of Su Zhen. The medicinal cauldron's might shook the heavens. Once it landed, it shattered the stone arena into ruins. With the exception of Xiao Yan, everyone hurriedly retreated to the rooftops of other buildings to observe the divine cauldron. After the dust cloud dissipated, Xiao Yan's eyes landed on the fallen river divine cauldron. Xiao Yan stared at the huge cauldron with a pleasantly surprised expression on his face. Others might not recognize this medicinal cauldron, but based on his knowledge of the heavenly cauldron ranking, if he was not mistaken, this medicinal cauldron was the Luo Tian divine cauldron that was ranked second on the heavenly cauldron ranking. Although it is a little damaged, this can be considered a pleasant surprise. Under Xiao Yan's inspection, the interior of the Luo Tian divine cauldron was severely damaged. It was no wonder that these people had called it the wrong cauldron. While Xiao Yan was paying attention to the medicinal cauldron, the onlookers had noticed Xiao Yan. This person was the only one who did not leave the arena after the stone arena was destroyed. This person is most likely a fool. He actually dares to stay there. Is he trying to attract attention? When they saw Xiao Yan standing in the arena, the onlookers began to mock him. As for Su Zhen, he sneered as he glanced at Xiao Yan. He did not pay much attention to Xiao Yan's existence. When Mu Ling saw the divine cauldron, a solemn feeling rose in his heart. A medicinal cauldron was an indispensable item for an alchemist. It was also an extremely important item in the alchemy process. The quality of a medicinal cauldron largely determined the quality of the elixir. A good medicinal cauldron could indirectly increase the success rate and even enhance the medicinal properties of the elixir. Therefore, when the divine cauldron appeared in the arena, Mu Ling suddenly felt a wave of pressure assaulting his heart. TSK 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 TSK. Since the cauldron has been revealed, let's begin. Mu Ling, let me see how capable a grade 6 high-grade alchemist like you is. Chapter 84. Su Zhen slammed his palm on the medicinal cauldron in front of him. He once again waved his sleeve and hundreds of colorful rays of light shot out. They rotated in the air before being thrown into the medicinal cauldron. Golden gilt flame rise? With a low cry, Su Zhen's palm violently slammed into the fire outlet. Immediately, a dazzling golden light filled the sky. The hot flame strength also instantly swept over the space around everyone. The air instantly became dry and hot. Breathing in caused one's throat to become unusually dry. It was as though all the water in the world had been sucked dry. The golden light scattered and a cluster of flickering glass-like golden flames fiercely burned within the medicinal cauldron. The fierce flames spat out from the cauldron and shot to the sky. That aura was just like that of a king overlooking the world. This is the strength of young Master Su's golden gilt flame? He is indeed worthy of being an elite Do zone. Just by revealing his aura, he is actually able to display such strength. It is indeed extraordinary. At this moment, quite a number of people revealed surprised expressions. Their expressions were filled with envy as they looked at the golden gilt flame within the cauldron. Their tone also contained quite a lot of flattery. That's right. This golden gilt flame is extraordinary. It is rumored that it is a flame that was born within the body of a rank 7 magical beast, the golden gilt beast. Its ability is extraordinary and it possesses a high temperature that can burn the world. It is incomparably terrifying. Adding the body of the golden gilt beast, this golden gilt beast can be said to be invincible among rank 7 magical beasts. This person's words had just sounded when a cold laugh was quickly emitted before everyone's expression could change. All of you only know that the golden gilt beast's strength is monstrous and can be said to be an invincible existence among rank 7 magical beasts. However, you do not know that the golden gilt flame in young Master Su's hand was obtained from the body of an adult golden gilt beast that young Master Su had personally killed. Therefore, the legend of the golden gilt beast being invincible among those of the same class is merely a joke. No matter how strong a fellow is in front of our young Master Su, hey, to speak the truth, one must lie down if one is a tiger and curl up if one is a dragon. Another uproar was stirred when these words were uttered. Looking at Su Zhen's strength, he had only just broken through to the Do Zone class. However, this golden gilt flame had accompanied Su Zhen for many years. It was really unexpected that Su Zhen had personally killed a rank 7 magical beast before he had become a Do Zone. This battle result could be considered frightening. Unfortunately, while everyone was shocked by these words, they did not notice that the clan emblem of the Yanluo City's Su clan was surprisingly embroidered on the chest of his robes. While everyone below the stage was discussing in amazement, Su Zhen, who was in the middle of the stage, had a mocking smile on his face as he swept his gaze over the crowd. What a bunch of idiots. How could they believe such words? They are really stupid. Golden gilt beast, not to mention me back then, even the current me would have to think twice before dealing with a cub, let alone an adult magical beast. What a bunch of idiots. Su Zhen laughed coldly in his heart. He once again turned his gaze to Mu Ling. The expression on his face suddenly became warm. However, there was no need to mention the reason behind this expression. Brother Mu, may I know what kind of flame your flame is? It might be a divine flame that will shock everyone. Aha. Mu Ling stared intently at Su Zhen. His expression suddenly became violent. The corner of his mouth was lifted into a playful smile as he laughed. Although it is not some natural heavenly flame, it should be sufficient to fight with you. Mu Ling extended his hand and beckoned as he spoke. His eyes stared into Su Zhen's eyes as a low cry was suddenly emitted. Green flame, mysterious flame, rise? A cluster of green flames suddenly rose in the air in front of Mu Ling following this low cry. A water vapor immediately rose in the air the moment the flame appeared. Although it was called water vapor, the high temperature contained within it caused one to feel that one's body was incomparably hot after inhaling a breath. It was as though one's body would be incinerated. This flame was actually able to turn everything in the world into one's own use. This scene was the complete opposite of Su Zhen's golden gilt flame. One had an extremely terrifying temperature that could evaporate everything and injure one's physical body. The other was able to use the water vapor in the world as one's own weapon. It could directly attack one's weakest internal organs and injure one's foundation. Bang! Mu Ling suddenly extended his hand and inserted it into the green-colored flame in front of him. He immediately clenched his hand and held it in his hand. Without waiting for anyone to react, Mu Ling's hand suddenly waved violently. The green-colored flame turned into a long flame whip. As Mu Ling continued to swing it, it soared into the sky. The green-colored flame flew in the air. The green light on it was faintly discernible. If one did not observe it carefully, one would not be able to tell that there was a flame in this place. Although the green-colored flame appeared ordinary, it was extremely powerful. If a person with a low cultivation level were to glance at it, his heart would heat up and his do qi would become violent. If it was serious, he would immediately be set on fire. From this, one could tell just how powerful this green-colored flame was. However, some people with sharp eyes immediately reacted when they saw the hot air being burned. This flame was the legendary Green Flame Mysterious Flame. This is actually the Green Flame Mysterious Flame. It's the Green Flame Mysterious Flame. This is a powerful existence that is second only to a heavenly flame. I did not expect that Mu Ling would be lucky enough to obtain it. The heavens are really unfair. The moment this voice came out, the expressions of everyone present were instantly startled. The crowd that had yet to quiet down once again began to exclaim in succession. Voices that carried a hint of shock rang out one after another. Green Flame Mysterious Flame. It really is the Green Flame Mysterious Flame. This is the Green Flame Mysterious Flame. It is a terrifying existence that is second only to a heavenly flame. However, within the crowd, there were also people who blindly worshipped Su Zhen. Even at this moment, they were doing their best to suppress the shock in their hearts and refute those who believed that this was the Green Flame Mysterious Flame. Hey, do you think it is possible? How can an existence like the Green Flame Mysterious Flame be something that Mu Ling can obtain? This is most likely a smokescreen by this brat. He wants to use this to destroy young Master Su's confidence. This person is really scheming. And now that the Mu clan has fallen, what else can they not do? I don't think so. If it is a smokescreen, it is impossible for this scene to appear. Whether it is real or fake, we will know when we see it. Immediately, the originally noisy crowd became even more fanatical. The allure of the Green Flame Mysterious Flame was indeed extraordinary. Just the title of the number one flame below the heavenly flame was already sufficient to cause this group of people to go completely crazy. Xiaoyan also gently smiled at this scene. This flame had indeed aroused a trace of interest in his heart. The combination of blazing and gentle water was somewhat similar to the bone-chilling flame. Although it was not on the heavenly flame ranking, it was indeed pretty good. Mu Ling's expression changed. Originally, he did not want to do this. However, since Su Zhen had repeatedly mocked and ridiculed him today, he had no choice but to take out his true trump card now. With a stern shout, the green flame that hovered above Mu Ling's head suddenly brightened. A heroic aura that looked down on the world suddenly soared into the sky. The moment this aura spread out, the golden gilt flame, which had a heaven-defying might a moment ago, instantly became sluggish. It was as if a commoner had seen their king, swaying unsteadily. At this moment, the heavenly flame in Xiaoyan's body was also a little stirred. As a heavenly flame, how could a heavenly flame allow another flame to lord over it? Xiaoyan was naturally helpless. With a thought, he suppressed the heavenly flame and continued to look at the two of them. When the scene of the golden gilt fire was reflected in the eyes of the crowd, the faces of those who were still doubting Mu Ling instantly turned into shock. Their eyes were filled with endless greed as they looked at Mu Ling. Su Zhen also looked at Mu Ling in astonishment. There was an indescribable iciness in his eyes. Very evidently, Su Zhen was rather displeased that Mu Ling had suppressed him in this matter. However, immediately after, Su Zhen laughed heartily and said, "I have really underestimated Brother Mu. I did not expect Brother Mu to actually possess such a heavenly flame. Since that is the case, let us raise the stakes today. If either of us loses, we will have to hand over our flame. Of course, I know that Brother Mu's green flame profound flame is precious and my golden gilt flame cannot be compared to it. Therefore, I will use something of the same value to add this golden gilt flame to Brother Mu's wager. Otherwise, I will be letting down this heavenly flame." At the end of his words, there was an additional hint of greed in Su Zhen's tone. When Mu Ling saw this, his eyebrows slightly furrowed. Just as he was about to refute, Su Zhen directly opened his mouth and blocked the words that were about to come out of his mouth. "Brother Mu, don't say that you are afraid of my suggestion. If that is the case, I will treat it as you taking the initiative to forfeit and admit defeat." When Mu Ling heard this, his heart was naturally filled with anger. This Su Zhen had obstructed him time and time again today. This was truly infuriating. However, Su Zhen completely ignored him. After he finished speaking, he placed all his attention on the medicinal cauldron in front of him. Previously, because Su Zhen was only warming up the cauldron, he had not started to extract the medicinal essence. Now that he had started, many people's gazes immediately turned towards him. Just as Su Zhen was feeling pleased with himself, Mu Ling's hands formed a seal and spiritual energy spread out. At the same time, the medicinal cauldron in front of him glowed brightly. Mu Ling's hand patted the body of the cauldron and the lid of the cauldron opened. Mu Ling waved his hand and brilliant lights filled the air. Hundreds of medicinal herbs floated in the air. Each of them emitted an extremely rich medicinal fragrance that spread for thousands of miles. At a glance, one could tell that they were extraordinary items. The pupils of the crowd below shrunk and they could not take their eyes off them. This was because they were fortunate enough to have seen these elixirs before. All of them were extremely expensive items. However, why were these elixirs in the hands of this trash? Deliberately mystifying things. Su Zhen furrowed his eyebrows. His limelight in front of the crowd was once again stolen, causing him to feel a wave of displeasure. First impressions were the strongest. He had never placed Mu Ling in his eyes. Therefore he could only assume that Mu Ling was just putting on a show. Even so, Su Zhen was not willing to be at a disadvantage. Soon after, his hands changed. In an instant, a tyrannical spiritual energy erupted from his hands and swept towards the medicinal herbs in the medicinal cauldron. As the saying goes, the connoisseur looks at the skill while the layman looks at the excitement. Although no one in the crowd cared about the Tao of alchemy, just by looking at this momentum, it still caused people to feel extremely excited. With regards to the competition between the two, Xiaoyan was naturally not interested. However, Mu Ling's character was quite to his liking. Therefore he had been waiting in his heart to watch. As the refinement began, the two medicinal cauldrons were filled with various kinds of medicinal essence. Some were viscous liquids while some were powdered. The competition between the two could finally be considered to have officially begun. A day quietly passed by. Batches of onlookers had been replaced by batches. However, the medicinal pills were still in the process of being refined. From the looks of it, it would take quite some time for the two to successfully refine the medicinal pills. Among these people, there were also some who discovered that although the spectators in the periphery were continuously moving about, there was a black-clothed figure standing straight in the middle of the arena without the slightest change. Only he was still observing the two of them refining medicine. It was as though he was startled and engrossed in it. Xiaoyan casually swept his gaze across the embryonic medicinal pill within Su Zhen's medicinal cauldron. A tinge of astonishment involuntarily flashed across his eyes. Although Su Zhen was not a good person, his strength was indeed not bad. After feeling slightly astonished in his heart, Xiaoyan once again turned his gaze towards Mu Ling. A glint flashed across the depths of his eyes. One is a Tier 7 Great Cyclic Pill and the other is a Tier 7 Poria Pill. Both of them are top-grade healing medicinal pills among the Tier 7 medicinal pills. However, the refining method of the Great Cyclic Pill is one that is easier to control. Su Zhen also knows how to choose. In this way, his chances of successfully refining it is higher than Mu Ling's. In terms of medicinal strength, the Poria Pill refined by Mu Ling is indeed superior to the Great Cyclic Pill. However, the difficulty of refining it far exceeds that of the Great Cyclic Pill. It is really uncertain if Mu Ling will be able to defeat Su Zhen. Time flew by. 5 days later, the medicinal cauldron, which had not changed since the beginning, suddenly emitted a strange fragrance. This fragrance was the fragrance of a pill. Once this pill fragrance spread, the entire Yanluo city instantly became lively. This is the fragrance of a pill. This is the pill fragrance that can only be formed by a Tier 7 medicinal pill. Only a Tier 7 medicinal pill can be formed. The denser the pill fragrance, the stronger the medicinal effect of the medicinal pill. Looking at this pill fragrance, this medicinal pill is definitely a top-grade medicinal pill among the Tier 7 medicinal pills. As the pill fragrance spread, everyone was once again attracted by the medicinal pill competition from 5 days ago. There were also people among them who shouted loudly. From the looks of it now, the outcome of this medicinal pill competition is about to be revealed. If anyone were to go now and satisfy young Master Su, they might even be able to obtain a Tier 7 medicinal pill that he will personally bestow upon them. Once these words were uttered, everyone was encouraged. A Tier 7 medicinal pill was a divine pill that they did not even dare to dream of. Now that they had the opportunity to obtain it for free, everyone would naturally not let it go so easily. Immediately, a large group of people swiftly rushed toward the arena where Xiaoyan was located. In just a moment, the arena, which was still empty an hour ago, was immediately covered by countless number of people. The sky and the ground were completely surrounded until not even a drop of water could pass through. Even the elite Do Huangs were like cabbages that filled the sky at this moment. Immediately, there were people who noticed Xiaoyan, who was standing between Mu Ling and Xiaoyan. Once they saw Xiaoyan, the turbulent human flow let out a cold snort. There was even a secondary Do Huang who opened his mouth and cried out. Where did this brat come from? Doesn't he know that young Master Su is refining a pill? All of us are standing outside the arena in accordance with the rules. What right do you have to stand in the middle? Get out here and don't disturb young Master Su's pill refinement. Before his rough voice sounded, that Do Huang had already moved and grabbed at Xiaoyan. He did not wish for the Tier 7 medicinal pill that he had bitterly waited for to fall into the hands of others. At this moment, when he saw that Xiaoyan was actually standing between the two of them, a scheme immediately appeared in his heart. At this moment he had moved to grab Xiaoyan. Firstly, he wanted to show off in front of Su Zhen. Secondly, he wanted to establish his might and let everyone see his strength. From there, he would be able to stand in a safe place. His body moved and a powerful aura at the peak of the Do Huang class suddenly swept out, causing the countless number of people to tremble. It was unexpected that this person's strength was actually this frightening. It was likely that they would not have a chance. This thought had just surfaced in everyone's hearts when a cold snort that carried an unparalleled pressure was suddenly transmitted over. You are merely at the peak of the Do Huang class, yet you actually dare to be this bold. Get lost. There is no place for you in this place today. As this cold snort was emitted, the Do Huang, who was charging explosively toward Xiaoyan, suddenly flew out from the air like a cannonball that had been shot. Everyone present was once again shocked. The person who had come was actually an elite Do zone. Before everyone could react, that voice once again turned toward Xiaoyan. The calm old voice contained an overbearing feeling that could not be defied. Brat, the old me has saved your life just now and can be considered to have done you a favor. The old me does not need you to repay anything. You should leave on your own. This place is not suitable for you. Everyone present instantly reacted when these words were uttered. This old man was actually relying on his seniority to directly chase someone away. In an instant, everyone present sighed at this old man. He's already a senior, yet he's still so shameless. He's really living like a dog. Xiaoyan's expression was slightly startled when he heard this. Immediately, the corner of his mouth was involuntarily lifted into a cold smile. His tone was indifferent as he replied. You saved me? Cuckoo, did I ask you to save me? You are merely meddling in other people's business. Bang! Everyone present was immediately startled when these words were uttered. Did this brat not know that the person he was facing was a true elite Do zone? The fury within the elite Do zone's heart soared when he heard this. Xiaoyan's rude words caused him to feel a wave of humiliation in his heart. Even though this was the case, he was not stupid in his heart. His tone was soft and deep as he asked Xiaoyan. May I know which elder of the Su clan descendant you are? The old me was once on good terms with a couple of elders of the Su clan. The old me might even be acquainted with your elder. Xiaoyan smiled. The ridicule on his face gradually became denser as he replied with a smile. I'm sorry, I am not a member of the Su clan. Additionally, you do not have the qualification to be acquainted with my elder. Bang. Before Xiaoyan's voice sounded, the powerful pressure that belonged to an elite Do zone pressed toward Xiaoyan. However, Xiaoyan acted as though it was nothing. His body still did not move. His gaze continued to look at the medicinal pill that was about to be finished within Mu Ling's medicinal cauldron. His expression was calm. The old man softly acknowledged. Immediately, the expression on his face suddenly turned cold. He let out a cold snort and opened his mouth to let out a cold cry. Bold young fellow. Pretending to be mysterious. Come over here. Today the old me will represent your elder to properly teach you a lesson. I will let you know how to face your elder. Before his voice sounded, the old man's body suddenly appeared in midair. His body flashed and he had already appeared beside Xiaoyan. His steel-like hand was extended and grabbed toward Xiaoyan's shoulder. Xiaoyan's face was covered in blood. At this moment, a coldness was revealed on Xiaoyan's indifferent face. A somewhat icy calm voice was once again emitted. I have said that you are not qualified to be acquainted with my elder and represent them. You are even less qualified. Bang! These words had just sounded when that elite Do zone suddenly burst apart, transforming into nothingness. Even his blood did not remain. In an instant, the entire place was silent. Even Su Zhen and Mu Ling, who had placed all their attention into the medicinal cauldron, felt their hearts tremble. The dou qi within their bodies instantly became sluggish. Their entire bodies paused for a moment at this moment. The gazes that they used to look at Xiaoyan were replaced by fear. Chapter 85. In an instant the entire place was silent. The entire place was silent. Everyone's hearts were repeatedly replaying the scene from earlier. An elite dou zong had suddenly exploded in front of this young man. Not even a trace of blood was left behind. Just what kind of frightening strength did this young man possess? To be able to kill an elite dou zong with a thought, this kind of strength was likely at the peak of the dou zong class at the very least. This young elite dou zong class had actually stood in front of their eyes for 5 days and was even mocked by them. At this moment, everyone involuntarily felt a chill in their hearts when they thought of this. This was especially true for Su Zhen and Mu Ling. Xiaoyan had been standing in this place for the past few days. If he had any thoughts, it was likely that the both of them would have already turned into 2 corpses. Su Zhen was a little better. His Su clan was able to dominate Yanluo City because it naturally possessed a great foundation. Although they did not have any elite dou shungs, they did have a couple of elite dou zuns. Forget about Xiaoyan, who only had the strength of a peak dou zong. Even a 5-star dou zun would have to lower his head in Yanluo City. As for Mu Ling, if he did not have the help of an expert, it was likely that he would not be able to block even one attack from Xiaoyan. Forget about Xiaoyan not knowing the thoughts of the two of them. Even if he knew, it was likely that he would not be too concerned. The current Xiaoyan did not care about such small characters. He tilted his head and randomly swept his eyes over the many cultivators behind him. After which he turned his gaze to Su Zhen and Mu Ling. Although Xiaoyan did not intend to do so, the hearts of the countless number of cultivators were startled. Under that gaze they were so frightened that their legs became weak. Waves of fear surged into their hearts. Immediately, many cultivators swiftly fled while wearing terrified faces. It was as though they were afraid that Xiaoyan would turn around and attack them. Of course, there was no lack of astute people among this endless number of cultivators. Xiaoyan's eyes did not contain the slightest killing intent. Why would he attack them? Perhaps this young man felt that it was beneath him to kill low-class cultivators like them. A portion of the people's bright eyes took a deep look at Xiaoyan. Soon after, they shut their mouths and did not say anything. Their cold eyes looked at the crowd that was fleeing in a panic. At this moment, these people, who originally had such thoughts, had already suppressed the greed in their hearts. The dou huangs and dou wangs in the sky had also landed. In front of an elite dou zong, even though they were renowned elite dou huangs in the outside world at this moment, they were as lowly as an ordinary person. Dou huang would never be able to truly break through before the dou zong class. At this moment, some people in the crowd recalled the words that a certain someone had said earlier. Young Master Su once killed an adult rank 7 golden Lu beast with the strength of a dou huang. This kind of battle result could indeed be called a legend to the crowd earlier. However, when they thought about it now, they felt that it was extremely laughable. A rank 7 adult golden Lu beast's strength was at least equivalent to a human 7-star dou zong. How could Su Zhen possess such strength? When they thought about the expression of that person when he spoke, that respectful expression, it was likely that one would be able to guess that this person should be a soldier of the Su clan. Why? Do the two of you not plan to continue? We have already reached the final stage of the pill nurturing process. Let's finish the refinement in one go. Just as everyone was absent-minded, Xiaoyan's calm voice once again spread out, causing Su Zhen and Mu Ling's expressions to abruptly turn around. They had nearly forgotten that Xiaoyan still existed beside them. The two of them cautiously looked at Xiaoyan. They completely ignored the flame that was about to be extinguished in the medicinal cauldron. After all, it was likely that no one would be able to do anything properly when there was a person beside them who could easily kill them at any time. Xiaoyan was naturally incomparably clear about this matter. He laughed and said. He chuckled and said, "What happened earlier was merely a small interlude. The two of you can continue. Of course, I will not disturb your pill refinement process, nor will I covet your medicinal pills. I will just randomly take a look." Mu Ling's anxious expression became a little more relaxed when he heard this. He did not hesitate any longer as his spiritual strength instantly poured out. The strength of the green flame mysterious flames suddenly soared. However, it was steadily controlled by Mu Ling at an extremely suitable temperature as he continued the final step of the medicinal pill refinement process. Su Zhen, on the other hand, gave Xiaoyan a deep look before he once again placed his mind on the medicinal cauldron from before. However, an elderly figure suddenly appeared in the space beside him. Looking at the thickness of his aura, his strength had actually reached the level of a 3-star dozun. Xiaoyan did not even look at this. He simply minded his own business and watched the two people in the arena finish up the match. Xiaoyan's indifference did not mean that the surrounding people were also indifferent. Numerous surprised voices sounded from the crowd the moment the old man appeared. Quickly look. That old man beside young Master Su. Isn't that the 5th elder of the Su clan? His strength has reached the terrifying 3-star dozun class. The outside world calls him Su Pei from the Hand of Hell. What? It is actually Elder Su Pei. Didn't he go missing 2 years ago? Hey, he's just missing because we can't see him. It's not like he's dead. Didn't you see Elder Su Pei guarding young Master Su? It seems like Elder Su Pei has been secretly protecting young Master Su for the past 2 years. TSK. Back then, Elder Su Pei possessed the strength to cross 3 classes. With the strength of a 2-star dozun, he had forcefully killed a 5-star dozun. This allowed him to have a place among all the elite dozuns in this southwestern region back then. That's right. From the looks of it, his aura is even denser than back then. It is likely that he has already broken through to a 3-star dozun. This brat actually dares to act so arrogantly in front of so many people today. Let's see if you will have a good time. Su Pei's pair of turbid old eyes stared intently at Xiaoyan while everyone was discussing with each other. It was as though he wanted to completely see through Xiaoyan. However, Su Pei's body trembled slightly in an instant. He frowned slightly and his eyes, which were originally staring intently at Xiaoyan, were involuntarily turned away. Earlier, when Su Pei was probing Xiaoyan, his eyes, which were staring at Xiaoyan, had become increasingly blurry for some unknown reason. There seemed to be a layer of dense fog covering Xiaoyan's body, causing him to be unable to see through him. The expression on his face changed slightly. However, when he once again looked at Xiaoyan, that feeling seemed to be present and undetectable. In short, everything about Xiaoyan gave him an indescribable mysterious feeling. Su Pei's originally frown involuntarily deepened after this. His eyes were filled with surprise as he looked at Xiaoyan. Just who is this person? Why is his aura so strange and indeterminate? What is his intention for coming to my Yanluo city? Xiaoyan's mysteriousness also caused a series of questions to involuntarily form in Su Pei's heart. For an old man of his level, it was already very difficult for anything to attract his attention. Currently, the only person he was truly concerned about was Su Zhen in front of him. Xiaoyan's appearance naturally caused him to have many questions in his heart. Amidst the silence, some fine lime powder also slid down from Su Pei's fingers under his sleeves. At the same time, deep within an important area of one of the wealthy families in Yanluo City, 4 pairs of turbid and sharp old eyes opened. All of this naturally could not escape Xiaoyan's eyes. However, to Xiaoyan all of this was just SOSO. In his heart, he could not be bothered to pay too much attention to it. A small fry like this was unable to arouse any emotions in his heart. Of course, unless they were stubborn and insisted on doing something with Xiaoyan, time flowed by minute by minute. Su Zhen and Mu Ling's foreheads were already covered with beads of sweat. Their clothes had long since become so drenched that water could be wrung out. The veins on their foreheads protruded and squirmed continuously. Their originally calm eyes had already turned scarlet red and their eyeballs were abnormally protruding. At this moment, the two of them had finally reached the point where they were like oil lamps that had run out of oil. Clang! Su Zhen's palm viciously slammed against the body of the cauldron, causing the lid of the cauldron to open. Golden flames abruptly soared into the sky, wrapping around a longan-sized round medicinal pill. Soon after, Su Zhen caught it in his palm. He stretched his arm forward and slowly opened his palm. A rich medicinal fragrance spread out, causing one to feel incomparably comfortable after taking a breath. A thin layer of clear mist wrapped around a light green medicinal pill. Its lustrous glow allowed one to know that this medicinal pill was no ordinary item. Cough cough. I have lived up to everyone's expectations. This young master has finally completed the refinement of a grade 7 middle grade great returning pill. Su Zhen coughed a few times as the corners of his mouth lifted into an arrogant smile. Today he had once again proved that he, Su Zhen, was the unchanging number 1 in Yanluo City. Even Su Pei, who was beside him, looked at Su Zhen with his turbid old eyes, which were filled with gratification. Although the current Su Zhen was incomparably weak, how many people could refine a grade 7 medicinal pill as a grade 6 alchemist? The current Su Zhen was enough to be proud of himself. However, all of this was nothing in the eyes of Xiaoyan, who was standing to one side. Without looking at anything else, just the grade 7 great returning pill was already a pure failure in his eyes. The medicinal pill's luster was dull and lusterless, while its medicinal fragrance was ordinary and unremarkable. The medicinal power within the medicinal pill was also extremely mixed. Although it had been forcefully fused together, if it was really used, it would likely cause quite a bit of trouble. However, Xiaoyan did not have the mood to be a good person and punish him. Such a person would sooner or later suffer the consequences of deceiving the world. Why should he be in a hurry to act? Compared to Su Zhen, Mu Ling's situation was clearly much better. Although his entire body was clearly weaker than Su Zhen, the medicinal power of the medicinal pill within the cauldron was even more concentrated and could be said to be of the highest grade. Suddenly, Mu Ling's hands moved simultaneously. The seals in his hands changed and he took out the China root pill from the cauldron. Wait a little longer. Wait for another 5 breaths of time before taking it out. The China root pill's medicinal power will completely condense and become a complete pill. When Xiaoyan saw Mu Ling's hand movements, the corners of his mouth instantly curled. This brat was truly impatient. He actually gave up on the medicinal pill that was about to successfully condense. How could this make Xiaoyan feel lonely and speechless? Upon hearing this, Mu Ling's heart moved. A complete pill was a way of saying that a medicinal pill had truly been successfully refined. An ordinary medicinal pill would only be a complete pill after being refined. For example, the great returning pill in Su Zhen's hands was a complete pill in everyone's eyes. A complete pill, on the other hand, was much better than a formed pill. Its medicinal strength would be a couple of times stronger than a formed pill. Its effect would also be shockingly strong. No wonder Mu Ling would have such a change after hearing Xiaoyan's words. Chapter 86. The seal in Mu Ling's hand quietly disappeared. His entire person seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. His spirit suddenly changed and the blood in his body seemed to have become excited. The crowd outside the arena had also heard Xiaoyan's words. Instantly, the cold and gloomy faces of the people who were suppressed by Xiaoyan's aura immediately became intense. They were completely different from before. Complete pill. The complete pill has actually appeared. I heard that having this complete pill is equivalent to having an extra life. Damn it, let's see who dares to snatch it from me. The temptation of the complete pill had actually caused some people to go crazy. Their eyes were red as they stared at the medicine cauldron in front of Mu Ling. The robes on the surface of their bodies trembled unnaturally and they assumed a posture as if they were ready to make a move at any time. At this moment, these people who lived on the edge of a knife all day finally could not resist the temptation of this complete pill. In their hearts, they had forgotten about the strength of their opponents and only had a desire for the treasure. Seeing this, Su Zhen's expression became gloomy the moment the words of the people around Xiaoyan sounded. His eyes were filled with hatred as he looked at Xiaoyan. 5 breaths passed in the blink of an eye. The seal between Mu Ling's hands changed and the lid of the medicine cauldron exploded following his hand seal. The green flame turned into a thick fire dragon that circled in the air and roared at the sky. It was as if a real dragon had appeared. The fire dragon held a green pill that was the size of a longan in its mouth. Following which, the fire dragon twisted its body and charged into the sky. The body of the pill emitted a green light in all directions. Together with the powerful aura of the fire dragon, it dazzled the world. At this moment, the group of crazy Do Wangs and Do Huangs also looked at the complete pill in the sky with eyes full of desire. Immediately, the Do Qi wings on their backs flapped and appeared. Then their bodies moved and they rushed toward the fire dragon. Looking from afar, it was as if countless streams of light were flying into the sky. Seeing this, Mu Ling's pupils shrank and he was pleasantly surprised. Although he was pleasantly surprised that he could refine a complete pill, he also knew how difficult it was to refine a complete pill. So, how was the medicinal strength of the complete pill? As an alchemist, he was naturally extremely clear about it. Hence, he already had other plans in his heart on how to use this China root pill. However, at this moment, when he saw this group of people actually shamelessly swarming forward, he was naturally extremely anxious in his heart. He was very aggrieved and thought to himself, the medicinal pills I refined are instead going to become someone else's wedding dress. What a shitty world. Suddenly, a soft snort was emitted from an unknown place. The group of Do Wangs and Do Huangs who had flown forward were all forcefully sent flying by an invisible strength under this sound. Seeing this scene, Mu Ling subconsciously turned his gaze toward Xiaoyan. He was not familiar with Xiaoyan, a stranger. Yet this person had actually helped him. Why did he do so? Thinking about it in his heart, Mu Ling immediately seemed to have thought of something. The gratitude in his eyes when he looked at Xiaoyan also disappeared. All that was left was vigilance and fear. Although Xiaoyan only had the appearance of a young man, He had lived in the Doqi continent for an unknown number of years and had seen many different kinds of people. With his shrewdness, he naturally understood Mu Ling's thoughts. After which, he laughed softly and said a sentence. You don't have to think so much. Your green flame, Shen flame and complete pill can barely be considered as second-rate goods to me. You can rest assured. Hearing these words, Mu Ling's eyebrows twitched. He was about to vomit blood. Wasn't this person too arrogant? This was the first time he had seen someone look down on his green flame Shen flame and even said that it could barely be considered as second-rate goods. He really wanted to say, you're the best, you're the best. Hurry up and leave. However, as long as this person didn't have any intention of spying on him, he wouldn't say anything. After all, a friend came from afar. Shouldn't he treat him with respect? Otherwise, what difference would there be between him and those thick-skinned people in the sky? Brother, thank you very much. I'm a little ashamed of what happened just now. Mu Ling's apology made Xiaoyan have a better impression of him. A person's character wasn't something that could be boasted about. A small matter was enough to show it. At this moment, Mu Ling had given Xiaoyan a real reason to help him. Compared to Mu Ling, Su Zhen's expression was even gloomier. Once the complete pill was revealed, it announced that his position as the #1 alchemist among the younger generation in Yanluo City had changed hands. Moreover, the owner of this title was the ant that he had casually stomped to death some time ago. Now that the roles had been switched, how could he endure it? The key point was that this brat had said something funny. This made him, as his opponent, lose face. Hence, Su Zhen's anger grew. The fire dragon circled the sky once. Following the change of Mu Ling's hand seal, it flew down in a spiral. The huge body of the fire dragon broke through the defensive tower and slowly disappeared. In the end, a China root pill landed in Mu Ling's palm. As he felt the warmth in his palm, Mu Ling could clearly sense the incomparably powerful medicinal strength and life force within the elixir. It was as if all the deathly aura would vanish in front of it. The life force of this elixir had actually reached such a terrifying level. Mu Ling raised his hand and opened his palm, exposing the China root pellet to the countless passionate gazes, causing a wave of resentment to shoot into the depths of his heart. However, at this moment he was not afraid in his heart. A clear voice slowly came out from the former's mouth. This is a grade 7 complete pill, China root. Damn it, let's fight. Charge. Brother, come and fight with me for the pill. Before the clear voice faded, countless people had already charged towards the pill in Mu Ling's hand with crazed and ferocious expressions. From the looks of it, it was as though they wanted to devour Mu Ling as well. At this moment, Su Zhen's venomous voice suddenly resounded throughout the sky. His voice was faint. These words were uttered by Su Zhen after a huge struggle in his heart. At the same time he pointed his finger at Xiaoyan. My Su family will repay whoever can help me kill these two people. Furthermore, this China root pill will also belong to that person. Once these words that were filled with temptation spread out, the originally already present crowd became even more important than their lives. Looking at Su Zhen's ruthless manner, this heavy reward was definitely not something the latter was perfunctory about. If they were fortunate enough to become a guest elder of the Su family, such a position would be second only to one person and above tens of thousands of people in a radius of a few thousand miles. Moreover, they would be able to enjoy countless resources. How could they give up so easily just because he said so? In their eyes, young Master Su's favor was even greater than the favor of a prince of the Celestial Empire. After all, this was a world where strength was respected. It was impossible for them not to be moved. Therefore, when Su Zhen's voice sounded, this group of Do Wangs and Do Huangs, numbering at least 100 people, had already crazily charged towards Xiaoyan and Mu Ling. Mu Ling's expression changed slightly. He was also extremely fearful of this terrifying crowd. Su Zhen also coldly smiled as he looked at the two of them from the side. In his heart he thought to himself, you must be blind to provoke me. I am the young master of the Su family. Brat, so what if you're a Do Zong? Looks like your life will end today after provoking this young master. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being blind and standing on the wrong side. Compared to Su Zhen's vicious smile, Su Pei took a step forward and stood in front of Su Zhen. His eyes stared at Xiaoyan as an indescribable bad premonition arose in his heart. Xiaoyan's face was expressionless as he faced the crowd of lunatics. He did not like killing to begin with. Facing these people, he did not even have the heart to kill them. Perhaps this was the disdain of the strong towards the weak. Xiaoyan ignored the crazy crowd. Instead he turned around and looked at Su Pei. Being stared at by Xiaoyan, the depths of Su Pei's heart suddenly shook. He quickly recovered, but the eyes with which he looked at Xiaoyan were filled with fear. May I know who you are and where your teacher is from? At this moment even Su Pei, an elite Dozun, had an additional solemn feeling when he spoke to Xiao Yan. Ignoring Su Pei, Xiao Yan flipped his hand and violently swung a slap. In the next instant, the countless number of Do Wangs and Do Huangs, who were hundreds of feet away from Xiao Yan and Su Pei, were sent flying backwards with a bang. The houses in this area were also smashed into ruins by this group of experts who were sent flying backwards. Originally, I did not want to do anything. However, a younger generation like you has the intention to kill me. This is something that I do not like. So, what do you want to do? Su Pei's eyes narrowed. He stared intently at Xiao Yan. The tone of his voice had clearly changed. He knew that it was likely that a big battle would be unavoidable today. Xiao Yan's indifferent eyes randomly glanced in a certain direction. Only then did he speak in a faint voice. It is not that I want to do anything. Instead, it is all of you. Since you wish to deal with me, why do you need to say any more nonsense? Just come at me directly. Su Pei's expression suddenly turned cold when he heard this. He let out a cold snort and his body shook. Do Qi surged out of his body as his right hand was suddenly clenched. Immediately, he swung it once again, transforming his fist into a claw that grabbed at Xiao Yan. Brat, how arrogant. Receive this attack from the old me Yama hand. Xiao Yan's body did not move even a little in the face of this attack. His body stood to the side and an invisible aura that could support the sky quietly spread out, causing a wave of cold wind to whistle in this area. At this moment, Su Pei's attack had finally arrived in front of Xiao Yan. Seeing Xiao Yan's calm face, Su Pei let out a cold snort in his heart. He coldly laughed at Xiao Yan's arrogance and ignorance. The Do Qi in his palm was even more agglomerated and its strength was even greater than before. However, in the next instant, Su Pei's body and the claw that was furiously grabbing at Xiao Yan stood horizontally in the air, unable to advance even an inch. There seemed to be an invisible barrier in front of Su Pei. Even he was powerless in front of this barrier. Explode for the old me. A thought passed through Su Pei's heart. He could not be bothered about his miserable appearance. The Do Qi within his body gathered on his palm. In an instant, it had already transformed into an enormous light cluster with a radius of 10 feet. The light cluster appeared crystal clear, appearing just like an ice crystal pearl. Numerous thunderbolts flickered with a dazzling lightning glow outside of the light cluster, giving it an extraordinary aura. A rolling thunder bead agglomerate. The enormous light cluster swiftly weakened and gathered in Su Pei's palm at a speed visible to the naked eye. The aura within it also became increasingly thick and fierce. It was likely that even a 7-star Dozun would have difficulty enduring it if it were to erupt. Everyone outside of the arena could naturally tell that this attack of Su Pei's was extraordinary. They sensed the increasingly powerful aura within the light cluster. Everyone's bodies quickly pulled back until they reached the horizon. From this, one could tell just how powerful this light cluster was. Xiao Yan, on the other hand, still maintained a calm and indifferent manner in the face of this. It was as though all of this had nothing to do with him. Fifth brother, stop. Don't hurt yourself. Wait for me to exchange another 100 blows with this brat. Suddenly, an explosive cry was transmitted from the distant horizon. Soon after, a ray of light shot through the empty space in a lightning-like manner. In an instant, it flashed and arrived beside Xiao Yan. The powerful aura of an 8-star Dozun suddenly poured down as a fist furiously smashed towards Xiao Yan. Brat, where did you come from? You are actually this arrogant just because you possess a little strength. Today, allow the old me to see just where your courage comes from. Ha! Xiao Yan's face remained indifferent in the face of the old man's furious cry. He did not even glance at the fist that was furiously flying over. Xiao Yan gently lifted his hand in front of the disbelieving eyes of everyone in the city. His palm gently met the old man's fist. A fist and a palm quietly arrived. When the two collided, the world was silent. It was as if nothing had happened. The old man's wild and powerful attack was just like an ordinary old man's fist. It did not have any power to speak of. How is this possible? Just who exactly are you? The expression of the old man instantly changed. He could clearly sense that the moment his fist made contact with the palm of this young man in front of him, the Do Qi within his body had already been completely sealed. At this moment he was no different from an ordinary old man. In fact, he was even weaker than an ordinary old man. This kind of situation could only mean that the strength of this young man in front of him had already reached the frightening level of being extraordinary. It was definitely not a frightening existence that he could contend with. Could it be that this young man had already reached that kind of level? The level of a true expert. Doshing. Xiao Yan naturally saw through the thoughts of the old man. He exerted a little force with his palm and pushed it forward. A bang sound appeared and the old man flew backwards like a kite with its string cut. Chapter 87. How bold of you. Die for the old me. Suddenly, a couple of explosive cries were transmitted from the sky. Soon after, 5 rays of light cut through the sky and charged towards Xiao Yan. Mysterious sky waterfall. Soon after, 5 powerful dozun pressures came crushing towards Xiao Yan. The space around them became slightly distorted. This was the overbearingness of an elite dozun. The eyes of one of the old men, who had reached the strength of a 7-star dozun, emitted a glint. He appeared incomparably vicious. At the same time, the palms in front of his chest were opened and closed. Seals continued to appear on his palms. The do-chi within his body swiftly gathered above his head, transforming into an energy waterfall. With a low cry, it violently smashed towards Xiao Yan. The other 4 elite dozuns had also poured their do-chi into the energy waterfall, causing the waterfall's might to be even more shocking at this moment. Xiao Yan remained expressionless in the face of this. A mere dozun. From the way he saw it, a dozun was already considered an expert many years ago. Now it was merely an ordinary person. Xiao Yan ignored the old man's do-chi attack. His bright eyes looked at Su Zhen in an indifferent manner. His clear and bright voice was faintly emitted. See? Originally, I did not intend to do this. However, this group of elders of yours have insisted on attacking me because of those words of yours. You cannot blame me for this. Xiao Yan's indifferent tone caused Su Zhen's body to tremble. His entire face became as white as a sheet of paper. It was completely bloodless. It should be known that just a moment ago his great-grandfather, who had reached the strength of an 8-star dozun, had been defeated by this brat in one strike in front of his eyes. One could imagine that this brat's strength had likely reached the 9th change of a dozun. Although Su Zhen thought in this manner in his heart, the expression on his face turned into a cold smile. He raised his hand and his palm turned into a fist. His thumb was lifted. After which, he turned it downwards and made a disdainful gesture. The corners of Su Zhen's mouth curled into a ferocious smile, making his whole face look a little twisted and crazy. His eyes were also full of ruthlessness. He raised his head and sneered at Xiao Yan with his nose in the air. You actually dare to utter such big words even when death is imminent. You really don't know your limits. Even if you have injured my grandfather, you will still die even if you are an expert 9-change dozun when faced with the full force attack of 5 high-class dozuns. In the next moment, the old man who had used his do skill on Xiao Yan also let out a cold laugh and shouted, Xiao Yan! Kid, you're already at death's door now, yet you actually dare to boast so shamelessly and act so arrogantly. You're truly courting death. Black Sky Waterfall. Destroy him for me. The large waterfall carried a frightening natural pressure as it violently struck towards Xiao Yan. The other 4 dozun elders also stared at Xiao Yan with ruthless faces. Powerful dozun auras poured out and heavily pressed towards Xiao Yan. Noisy. Just as the towering waterfall landed in the sky above Xiao Yan's head, Xiao Yan suddenly waved his large sleeve. An invisible energy instantly swept over the entire place. The full force suppression of the 5 elite dozuns appeared to be nothing as it was instantly broken through. It swept in all directions without pausing. Among them there were also 5 skinny figures that seemed to be dead. At this moment, the surrounding people, who had already dodged to 1,000 feet away, finally woke up. Their eyes were filled with horror as they looked at Xiao Yan. If I remember correctly, the elite dozun who had charged towards the sky earlier should be the current strongest person in the Su clan. Su Zhen's grandfather is a genuine 8-star peak dozun. He is only 1 step away from reaching the 9-star dozun class. The crowd immediately turned into an uproar after this voice was emitted. Even an ultimate expert who was comparable to a 9-star dozun was forced back by a single strike from that young man. Just how great was the strength of that young man? Since that old man is an 8-star dozun, it is likely that the weakest of the 5 elite dozuns who came after him is a 5-star dozun. At this moment, the crowd was also extremely shocked by this frightening lineup today. Just a young man had attracted a total of 7 elite dozuns. Even though this was the case, that young man was still able to forcefully suppress them. This ability really caused quite a number of people in the crowd to feel a fiery heat in their hearts. In one's life, by being able to achieve such an achievement at a young age, it was likely that one would be able to proudly face any kind of difficulty in the future. At this moment, Mu Ling was also using a shocked gaze to stare blankly at Xiao Yan. The muscles on his face seemed to have solidified. His mouth was also wide open and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that this person of the same age, who had inexplicably helped him, would actually possess such great strength. Even when the 5 elders of the Su clan attacked together, they were unable to last more than one round. Such strength could be said to be heaven-defying. Xiaoyan also revealed a calm and harmonious smile to Mu Ling. Only then did he break Mu Ling's stunned expression. Xiaoyan's gaze swept over the crowd of observers in the distant sky. After which he turned his gaze towards Su Zhen. His expression contained traces of coldness. At this moment, the expression on Su Zhen's face had been replaced by an endless horror the moment the 5 elders were sent flying. At this moment, everything that the black-robed man before him had done today had completely crushed his arrogant heart. Just as Xiaoyan was about to make his move, the space in front of Su Zhen distorted and Su Pei's figure once again appeared. After his figure appeared, Su Pei flipped his hand and sent Su Zhen flying with a palm strike. His own body borrowed the force from the blow and charged towards Xiaoyan. "Zhener, hurry up and leave. Today, us old fellows might have to die here. Quickly leave this place and you must hide well. Do not come out if you do not have sufficient strength." As Su Zhen's figure flew backwards, Su Pei's final words completely fell into Su Zhen's ears. After hearing this, Su Zhen finally truly understood just how terrifying the strength of the person Su Pei was about to face was. With regards to this, a trace of impatience rose in Xiaoyan's heart. He did not say that he was going to kill anyone, but these old fellows insisted on risking their lives time and time again. This really made him somewhat angry in his heart. Umph. With a cold snort, Su Pei's forward-charging body suddenly stilled. Soon after, Xiaoyan slammed his palm forward. A bang sound appeared and Su Pei had already turned into nothingness. Not even a trace of flesh was left behind. This scene was no different from that elite Do Zone from earlier. Before Xiaoyan could act, another figure flashed and appeared in front of Su Zhen, who had just stopped his body. From the looks of it, this figure was Su Zhen's great-grandfather. "You are really going all out." Xiaoyan raised his hand. A palm was thrown through the air and smashed towards Su Zhen's great-grandfather, that skinny old man who was merely an 8-star dozun. However, a layer of ruthlessness covered the face of Su Zhen's great-grandfather in the face of Xiaoyan's attack. He waved his hand and a jade scroll flashed and appeared in his palm. Without any hesitation, his shriveled hand suddenly clenched. The jade scroll instantly exploded into dust that scattered in all directions. At the same time, Xiaoyan's palm was also violently swung downwards. An enormous invisible hand appeared in front of the skinny old man. It ruthlessly slammed towards the skinny old man. Bang! A wave of water wave-like energy ripples spread 10 feet in front of the skinny old man. A Douqi barrier also appeared and protected Su Zhen and the old man within it. Xiaoyan lifted his brows when he saw this scene. His eyes were a little surprised as he looked at the Douqi barrier. This Douqi barrier was actually set up by a Bandi expert. Is it because of the jade scroll from earlier? Looks like this Su clan has some story. Chapter 88. It is unexpected that such a small clan actually has an elite Bandi protecting them. They are really extraordinary. Xiaoyan's eyes were indifferent as he looked at the skinny old man. His expression was still calm. It was as though he viewed the Bandi as nothing. Humph. Brat, you are really arrogant. Even though you are an elite Do Xing, you are still just like an ant in front of a Bandi Zun. The corner of the skinny old man's mouth was lifted when he heard Xiaoyan's calm words. A cold smile was lifted before he emitted a cold snort. Clearly he felt great disdain for Xiaoyan's ignorance. Xiaoyan involuntarily emitted a cold laugh in the face of the skinny old man's disdainful words. His hand, which had fallen, was once again lifted. He slammed it down towards the invisible barrier from a distance. This seemingly random attack caused the entire place to tremble. The space between Xiaoyan and the barrier was completely shattered into nothingness by this palm. The empty space shattered and an enormous strength that could support the sky suddenly appeared in front of the invisible barrier. In the blink of an eye, it transformed into an enormous hand that reached the sky. Before the skinny old man could react, the large hand that could support the sky had already collided with the barrier. The entire place shook in an instant. A deafening sonic boom swept over the place. A powerful air wave also swept in all directions from the middle of the collision. Its strength shook the entire place. Crack. An invisible clear sound appeared in the sky. Immediately, the skinny old man could clearly see that the invisible barrier in front of him had actually formed a tiny crack line at this moment. However, this was not the end. A crack line appeared. Within a couple of breaths' time, the invisible barrier had already cracked deeply. The entire barrier was filled with clear crack lines. Bang! A loud bang sounded. The invisible barrier suddenly burst apart under this sound. It turned into nothingness and disappeared from this place. The skinny old man's heart was suddenly startled when he saw this scene. His skinny face also revealed a shocked expression. This young man in front of him was actually, a half-martial emperor. Xiaoyan ignored the grandfather and grandson duo in front of him after the barrier was shattered. Instead, he turned his body and the dou qi in his body suddenly poured out and smashed toward the empty space beside his body. Boom! With a muffled sound, Xiaoyan's figure shook and took a few steps back. However, the ground beneath his feet had already transformed into an enormous pit that was 300 meters wide. The strength of a half-martial emperor was actually this powerful. He had merely been knocked back a few steps, yet he had created such a huge crater. It was likely that even an all-out attack from a peak dozun would have difficulty creating such a large hole. The might of a single step possessed a strength that far exceeded the peak of the dozun class. An elite bandit was really this frightening. You're a half-martial emperor, yet you've resorted to such lowly methods. This goes against your status. Xiaoyan's body did not move. His body stood in the empty air. The corner of his mouth contained a cold smile as he spoke in a faint voice. The winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. You never care about the process. Why do you need to be so obsessed with your face? A black-purple robed figure appeared after Xiaoyan's words sounded. He stood 100 feet in front of Xiaoyan. At the same time, a somewhat dry and hoarse mocking voice was emitted. Xiaoyan smiled. His face revealed a mocking expression as he coldly laughed. No wonder you have become like this. You have already become shameless. In front of Xiaoyan's eyes, half of that person's face appeared to have been splashed with sulfuric acid. It was unusually distorted and extremely frightening. These words of Xiaoyan had clearly struck a sore spot in this person's heart. The eyes that he used to look at Xiaoyan were even more ruthless. It was as though he wanted to bite Xiaoyan. His originally distorted face appeared even more frightening at this moment. However, suddenly, a burst of wild laughter was emitted from his mouth. Only then did he look at Xiaoyan. His eyes were filled with an ice-cold and indifferent expression. Stinking brat, this old man has been in power for many years. There are many people who have insulted and ridiculed this old man like you. I'm afraid that there are at least a few hundred of them. Do you know what happened to those people who insulted and ridiculed this old man? Xiaoyan's mouth lifted into a cold smile when he heard this. His tone was calm as he replied. They are all dead? The gaze that the old man used to look at Xiaoyan was even colder. A ferocious smile that caused one's heart to tremble appeared at the corner of his mouth. He mocked as he said, "That's right. They were all killed by this old man. Not a single one of them managed to escape. Moreover, among them there were several people who had reached the half-emperor level like you." The crowd standing at the edge of the sky immediately stood up after the old man's words sounded. According to what the old man had said, he had once killed an extraordinary expert at the half-emperor level. Didn't this mean that his strength was at the very least at the half-emperor level? Looking at Xiaoyan again, the sneak attack from this half-emperor level expert had been easily dealt with by him. In that case, wouldn't Xiaoyan's strength also be at the half-emperor level? In a single day, these wild cultivators who spent their days on the edge of blades had actually met two half-emperor level experts that they did not even dare to imagine. How could this not cause them to be shocked and moved? In merely an instant, the crowd that was about to erupt once again turned silent. The might of a half-emperor level expert was no joke. If any of them had really angered these two, it was likely that their seemingly large group would be turned into ashes with a single thought. At this point, the deterrence of a half-emperor level expert could be seen. No matter how wild and fearless a person was normally, they could only face a half-emperor with a fearful attitude. The suppression of a half-emperor level expert was not only limited to one's body, it was also true control over one's soul. In front of a half-emperor level expert, all one could feel was that all one's efforts would be a pile of bubbles. It was illusory and impossible. Today, the home ground of Yanluo City would definitely belong to these two people in front of them. Therefore, while the crowd was silent, all of them swiftly retreated. It should be known that even the aftershock of a half-emperor level expert's attack was completely enough to shatter them. Xiaoyan gently glanced at the rapidly retreating crowd. The corners of his mouth curled into a faint smile. Tilting his head to look at the old man with a distorted face, he smiled and said, "Since they have already opened up a space for us, shouldn't our battle begin?" The old man sneered. Below the distorted half of his face, There seemed to be countless worms squirming about. It was an exceptionally disgusting sight. "Brat, since you are in such a hurry to seek death, this old man shall lend you a hand today. Hee, little brat, prepare to die." Before the old man's mocking voice could fade, the shriveled body wrapped in a purplish-black long robe suddenly jerked and charged towards Xiaoyan. Withered Poison Palm. Chapter 89. Withered Poison Palm. The old man with a distorted face moved and arrived in front of Xiaoyan. Black and purple do chi swiftly gathered in his palm. Light flickered within his old eyes as a palm ruthlessly smashed towards Xiaoyan's face. Xiaoyan was not the least bit afraid of this. The old man was merely a 5-star half-D. Even an 8-star half-DD splitting cloud wolf had been killed by him. What could this ugly old man do to him? With a flip of his hand, Xiaoyan's palm ruthlessly met the old man's palm head-on. Ancient God Seal. Even though it was a high-level D-class Do skill in the hands of a Ban Emperor expert, it was still extremely extraordinary and gave off a monstrous aura. The collision of the two caused the world to tremble. Even though there was such a great distance between them, some of the weaker cultivators still emitted a poochie sound and spat out a mouthful of blood from their bodies. Even the stronger ones involuntarily had a trace of blood seeping out from the corner of their mouths. Their faces had also instantly turned pale. A Ban Emperor expert was indeed worthy of being the true strongest in the Yuanwu continent. Even though there was a distance of 10,000 miles between them, it was as though there was nothing in their eyes. The palms of the two collided and separated upon contact. A wild and violent explosion spread from between the two. The powerful force caused many tiny cracks to appear in the surrounding space. It was as though the entire space would collapse in an instant with just a little more force. Octane Blast. Poison Finger. The two of them had just forced each other to take a step back when Xiaoyan and the old man in front of him once again moved. A thought passed through Xiaoyan's heart and the Octane Blast was unleashed. A flying kick swept toward the old man. The old man was not willing to be outdone. His shriveled hand instantly clenched into a fist. His finger carried a strength that could prop up the heavens as it ruthlessly smashed towards Xiaoyan's flying kick. Although this old man appeared ferocious and his entire body was as skinny as firewood, he was even inferior to an ordinary old man. However, the aura all over his body contained a ferocious, overbearing strength that could shake the world. It did not match the appearance of his body at all. The old man's finger wasn't weak, but how could Xiaoyan's level 8 collapse be weak? Under the enhancement of the Octane Collapse, Xiaoyan's physical strength had already reached an extremely terrifying level. If it was just a competition of physical strength, then he probably wouldn't be at a disadvantage even if he fought a half-martial emperor with the same strength. A finger and a leg, both carrying a terrifying aura that could destroy the world, rapidly approached. Space, which was already on the verge of collapse, finally could not endure such a terrifying force. It exploded with a bang and turned into a pitch-black endless space. Boom! Xiaoyan's leg and the finger violently smashed together. The old man's expression changed first. He did not expect that the physical body of this brat in front of him was actually so incomparably strong. He actually found it somewhat difficult to endure this attack. On the other hand, Xiaoyan's strong and ferocious strength was revealed after the two powerful Do Chis cancelled each other out. His powerful physical strength allowed him to be in an invincible position. No matter how strong the old man in front of him was, he was unable to hurt Xiaoyan at all. Humph! Brat, don't think that you can defeat me just because you have some strength. Just relying on strength to fight with me is not enough. The old man's face did not show any anger after suffering a loss. Instead, he coldly laughed as he looked at Xiaoyan and spoke. A glint flashed deep within Xiaoyan's eyes when he heard these words. The corners of his mouth lifted into a playful smile. He also coldly laughed as he replied. In that case, may I know what you mean by these words? The old man felt some anger in his heart when he heard Xiaoyan's act of ignorance. This brat was already in trouble, yet he still dared to ask such a question. This really caused him to feel a little surprised. Humph! Brat, you are really arrogant. My withered poison palm and poison centipede finger are high-level ultimate skills from the super faction in the middle region, the Du AI sect. Both of them dominate the world with their potent poison. If the two of them were to be added together, the poison would multiply. You actually dare to be so arrogant even after being poisoned. You are really seeking death. Xiaoyan lifted his brows when he heard the old man's words. Du AI sect, a faction in the middle region. Could this old man be someone from the middle region? Oh, Du AI sect, huh? It still exists. However, I wonder if the current Du AI sect is still the same Du AI sect from back then. Suddenly, Gu Yu's somewhat emotional voice was transmitted into Xiao Yan's heart, causing Xiao Yan to raise his brows again. Just how long had this crossing disaster sect existed? It actually caused Gu Yu to sigh endlessly. Old Gu, do you know about this Du AI sect? Xiao Yan involuntarily asked when he heard Gu Yu's emotional sigh. Gu Yu smiled faintly in his heart as he replied to Xiao Yan. Du AI sect was founded 5,000 years ago. The Crossing Disaster sect was established 5,000 years ago, and its founder was an expert whose strength had reached the Great Origin Saint stage. His status was the same as the little girl you met in Qingyang City. He also had the woeful poison body. Xiao Yan's mind suddenly shook when these words sounded. His heart was filled with surprise. The Du AI sect had been established by someone with the woeful poison body. Moreover, the most unbelievable thing was that the person with the woeful poison body had actually reached the Great Origin Saint stage. The Great Origin Saint stage was the true top expert of the entire Yuanwu continent. However, Xiao Yan frowned in the blink of an eye. He involuntarily felt some doubt in his heart. Back then, the little fairy doctor had been a Dozun, but she had already had difficulty suppressing the woeful poison body. If she had not gathered the monster core of the sky poison dragon scorpion beast and many other natural treasures, it would have been difficult for her to control it. However, the woeful poison body from the ancient times had reached the Great Origin Saint stage. How could this gap not cause Xiao Yan to feel suspicious? There is no need to think too much. That person's strength has indeed reached the Origin Saint stage. Moreover, the woeful poison body within her body has yet to erupt. Huh? Since it had yet to erupt, did that not mean that the woeful poison body of that person had not been suppressed? She is extraordinary. Ever since she started training, she has forcefully suppressed the woeful poison body each time it erupts. Even until the day she dies, it is still the same. Xiao Yan's heart was once again startled when he heard this. This person was truly an extraordinary person. The determination in her heart was truly unparalleled. Just as Xiao Yan was about to open his mouth to ask something, the old man's body shook. Purple-black Do Qi swiftly gathered in his palm as a palm attacked Xiao Yan once again. Xiao Yan involuntarily frowned when he saw this. A cold snort was emitted from his nose. His body shook as Do Qi instantly surged from his palm. His right hand was suddenly clenched into a fist as he threw a punch at the old man. Chapter 90. Withered Poison Palm. Purple-black Do Qi continued to spew out from the old man's palm. This technique was actually the extremely poisonous withered poison palm. Xiao Yan's expression remained unchanged in the face of this. After all, regardless of how poisonous his Do Qi was, it was as though it was nothing in front of a heavenly flame. Xiao Yan threw a punch forward. All the strength in his body poured out and violently smashed towards the old man's palm, which had already turned purple-black. Octane blast. It was another octane blast. In the blink of an eye, Xiao Yan had already arrived in front of the old man. His right fist violently smashed towards the shriveled palm. Bang! One fist and one palm separated upon contact. However, without waiting for them to rest, the two figures once again collided. The originally pitch-black ink-like endless empty space appeared even more empty at this moment. In merely a short moment, the two of them had already exchanged over 300 blows. Each blow was ruthless and each one was fatal. If it were not for the fact that the two of them were different from ordinary people, it was likely that they would have to pay quite a hefty price. The surrounding crowd had already retreated to an even further place in the horizon. If they did not flee further away from such a huge battle, it was likely that the many cultivators in Yanluo City could only end their lives here today. Xiao Yan and the old man each stood on one side of the endless empty space in the sky. Some tiny beads of perspiration hung on Xiao Yan's forehead. Occasionally, some perspiration would roll down Xiao Yan's face, wetting a corner of Xiao Yan's clothes. At this moment, the auras of the two had become somewhat unstable. Clearly, this endless battle was still unbearable for the both of them even though their strength had already reached the half-emperor level. Humph! Brat, after receiving 300 withered poison palms from this old man, the poison within has already entered your body. As long as this old man wills it, the poison will immediately erupt. Today you will definitely die in my hands. Eek. At this moment, this old man with a distorted face appeared to be in an extremely miserable state. His grayish-white long hair was scattered in front of him. His purple-black long robe had also turned into pieces. However, the gaze he used to look at Xiao Yan was filled with a bloodthirst. Hearing the madman's words, the corners of Xiao Yan's mouth lifted into a sneer, and the playful look in his eyes became even stronger. A ferocious expression was revealed on the madman's distorted face when he saw this. His eyes were filled with ruthlessness. At this moment he was already prepared to enjoy Xiaoyan's painful appearance when the poison acted up. The old man stared ferociously at Xiaoyan. With a thought, he waited for the moment when Xiaoyan showed fear on his face. Unfortunately, for a full 5 breaths time, Xiaoyan did not move at all under the old man's tight gaze. Instead, Xiaoyan only smiled as he looked at the old man. At this moment, a grave expression appeared on the old man's distorted face. His eyes were filled with disbelief as he stared at Xiaoyan. How is this possible? How can you control it? Even if you are an alchemist, even if you have a divine pill, it is impossible for you to completely suppress this withered poison palm. What exactly? Without waiting for the old man to finish speaking, Xiaoyan had already made his move. Xiaoyan extended his right hand in front of him and pointed at the old man in the distance. A cold smile was lifted from the corners of his mouth. With a thought, a cluster of gorgeous flames appeared in Xiaoyan's palm with a puff sound. When the old man saw the gorgeous flame in Xiaoyan's palm, his originally distorted face suddenly tensed up at this moment. Numerous ferocious wiggling gullies appeared on his eye-catching scar. A long while later, the old man's eyes continued to stare intently at the flame in Xiaoyan's palm. His eyes were without spirit. Only 15 minutes later did he use a hoarse voice and trembling lips to speak with a face filled with disbelief. How is this possible? This is impossible. How can it be, a heavenly flame? That was impossible. All the heavenly flames in the world have already formed a spirit. Unless one is a talented individual, how can one obtain their favor? How can you obtain it? Xiaoyan merely laughed in the face of the old man's nonsense. All the heavenly flames in the world had a spirit. This point was something that Old Bone had told him long ago. However, his heavenly flame originated from the Do-Chi continent. Why would he need the acknowledgement of those fellows? At this moment the old man was speaking such crazy words. This naturally caused Xiaoyan to laugh coldly. With a flip of his hand, the heavenly flame was absorbed into his body. The corner of Xiaoyan's mouth once again smiled. He coldly laughed at the old man and said, "I did not have enough fun fighting just now. Let's do it again." Congealing fire finger. Xiaoyan's body moved and had already arrived beside the old man. He extended his finger and a gorgeous flame swiftly wrapped around Xiaoyan's finger. Wherever this finger passed, the world was destroyed. The endless empty space, which had just recovered a little, was once again shattered into pieces by this finger. The Do-Chi on Xiaoyan's finger gathered with all his might. The gorgeous flame appeared to have agglomerated into a substance. It carried a flying swan aura that could break the world as it pointed directly at the old man's life gate with the intention of determining life and death. At this moment, the old man could no longer be bothered about whether Xiaoyan had a heavenly flame on his body. No matter what, the two of them would definitely have a big battle today. If he was afraid of Xiaoyan at this moment, it was likely that he would no longer have the opportunity to fight. So what if he has a heavenly flame on his body? It is merely a wisp of heavenly flame essence. Not to mention a wisp of source energy. Even if his true body appears today, this old man will make sure that he doesn't return alive. Xiaoyan involuntarily raised his eyebrows when he heard this. A certain fellow within his body seemed to be a little unhappy. The old man did not dare to underestimate Xiaoyan's finger. His body forcefully turned in the air and his finger met Xiaoyan's congealing fire finger. Poison weeping finger. This poison weeping finger was even more solid than before. Rich purple-black Do-Chi gathered at one spot, causing the might of this finger to be even stronger than before. Bang! Xiaoyan's body did not move at all after the finger was pointed. A cold smile appeared on his face as his body suddenly shook. An enormous force poured out from his finger and violently smashed onto the old man's body. Bang! The old man was clearly unable to endure any longer. Even though he was a 5-star half-emperor, he was still unable to reverse the situation with the heavenly flame. His body had just pulled back when Xiaoyan once again followed closely behind. The old man's expression changed. He could not be bothered about his miserable appearance as his body did a donkey roll in the air. Only then did he dodge Xiaoyan's attack. Damn it. Brat, you are really the first person to cause the old me to suffer in such a manner. The old me admits that you possess extraordinary strength with the heavenly flame in your body. Even though this is the case, the old me will definitely end you here today. The old man's body suddenly shook before his voice sounded. A monstrous aura spread out from within his body. His shriveled hand was pulled back in front of his chest. His finger moved continuously and numerous complicated seals were formed. The aura of the old man also soared at an extremely frightening speed. Brat, since you possess the heavenly flame in your body and possess the heavenly flame in your body today, you can also have a taste of this old me's 10,000 poison body. Take a look at this old me's 10,000 poison body. Before his voice sounded, a purple-black lotus poison seal appeared between the old man's distorted brows. Following the appearance of this lotus poison seal, the old man's aura also soared in an instant. His originally powerful aura swept apart like a monstrous wave at this moment, causing the entire Yanluo city to tremble unceasingly at this moment. Xiaoyan's eyebrows were tightly knit together the moment he saw the purple-black poison seal between the old man's brows. This old fellow actually also possessed the woeful poison body. However, Xiaoyan's grave expression recovered in an instant. Although he also possessed the woeful poison body, this old fellow was like Xianxia back then. It was a man-made woeful poison body. It was many times weaker than a genuine woeful poison body. Not only that, under Xiaoyan's senses, this old fellow's 10,000 poison body was still much weaker than Xianxia back then. It was completely an incomplete half-finished product. Originally, I was planning to play with you a couple of times. However, since this is the case, it will be extremely easy to deal with you. Thinking back then, Xianxia was indeed extraordinary from Xiaoyan's point of view. He was able to endure the pain of turning into a woeful poison body. However, it was also because of this that Xiaoyan also felt a little interested in him. Additionally, he was familiar with the meridians of the woeful poison body. The few meridians that needed to be used in this half-finished product had already been completely familiarized by Xiaoyan. At this moment, it could be said that it was extremely easy for him to deal with this old fellow. Ah, arrogant brat. Even if you have the heavenly flame protecting your body, you will definitely fall under my poison today. 10,000 poison body, 10,000 mild destruction. Great desolate weeping poison, exterminate. The old fellow's body suddenly shook after his voice sounded. Purple-black do qi instantly surged out. The entire place was covered by this poison fog that permeated the sky in an instant. Even among the crowd, who had already withdrawn tens of thousands of kilometers away, there were people whose faces instantly turned grayish-black under this poison fog at this moment. Dark black blood flowed out from their 7 orifices. In merely a moment, many people who could be considered experts in Yanluo City had already turned into a pool of blood before completely disappearing from this world. Even those who were not poisoned did their best to maneuver the little do qi within their bodies to wrap around themselves and do their best to resist. At this moment, Yanluo City had already turned into a dead city. Any place where there were people had turned into a pool of blood. Where there were no people, the land was barren and all life had been extinguished. After this battle, this Yanluo city would no longer have any life in the next 100 years. Even though this was the case, Xiaoyan's face remained calm. Only when the poison fog attacked did he slowly raise his hand. He extended a finger and a light flickered on his finger. A cluster of thumb-sized flame, which looked like it could be extinguished at any moment, slowly rose. Immediately Xiaoyan pressed his finger forward. A water-like flame ripple spread out. Wherever the flame passed, the purple-black poison fog in the sky appeared to be like ice that had encountered a raging fire. A chi-chi sound was emitted. After which, it turned into a clear fog and disappeared into the empty space. The old fellow's distorted face instantly changed when he saw this scene. However, before he could do anything, Xiaoyan's distant figure flashed. He used the sky extinction step and appeared beside the old fellow in a flash. Fire lotus break. With a thought, countless small angry Buddha fire lotuses appeared around Xiaoyan's body. His right fist was suddenly clenched and Xiaoyan's fist carried an overwhelming might as it suddenly smashed toward the old fellow. Bang! An explosion sounded. In an instant, this entire place was swallowed by the endless empty space. The poison fog that permeated the sky also disappeared in an instant. The wild and violent do qi wave was only completely swallowed by the endless empty space when it was about to reach the countless number of people. The crowd once again retreated by thousands of kilometers after being shaken. They were afraid that they would be implicated again. A half-D expert was indeed frightening. Even this world had difficulty restraining them. It was really impossible to imagine just how powerful those true experts at the peak of the continent would be once they attacked. It was likely that with a casual flip of their palm, the entire continent would instantly crumble apart. It was a long while later before this place returned to its natural state. The clothes of the old man with a distorted face were completely torn in front of everyone's eyes. Fresh blood had already turned his entire body into a bloody person, causing him to appear even more ferocious and frightening. If one were to look carefully, one would be able to discover that the body of this old fellow was actually a little illusionary. In order to fight Xiaoyan, this old fellow had actually self-destructed his bandy body. When one looked at Xiaoyan again, although he was in a much better state compared to this old fellow, the palm imprint on his chest was also quite eye-catching. The dark red palm imprint informed everyone that even though Xiaoyan had the heavenly flame on his body, he was still unable to avoid being eroded by the poison force in the face of this old fellow's full-force attack. This old fellow's full-force attack could be said to be frightening. This old fellow had actually used his life to exchange for Xiaoyan's life at the last moment. He wanted to perish together with Xiaoyan. He sacrificed all of his essence blood and gathered all of his poison force. Using his physical body as a medium, he self-destructed his bandy body and collided with Xiaoyan. Unfortunately, even though this was the case, Xiaoyan, who had the heavenly flame on his body, used the Emperor Flame to forcefully resist. Therefore, this old fellow had difficulty injuring him. The might of the heavenly flame was clearly extraordinary. Cough cough, that heavenly flame of yours, just what kind of heavenly flame? At this moment, this old fellow finally understood the situation. Xiaoyan might seem ordinary, but his explosive strength was sufficient to fight against him. Moreover, he had the protection of the heavenly flame. The poison force that he was so proud of was completely useless. Although he could cause Xiaoyan to be eroded by the poison force, as long as Xiaoyan was willing to pay a huge price, he would definitely be able to get rid of it. Therefore, he would definitely lose today's battle. This was a foregone conclusion. When Xiaoyan heard this old fellow's words, he clearly understood in his heart that these should be his last words. Since that was the case, there was no harm in saying them. His heart paused for a moment. Xiaoyan's eyes focused on the old fellow. His lips parted slightly and a calm voice was transmitted into the old fellow's ears alone. This flame is called the Emperor Flame. In an instant, the old fellow's eyes suddenly widened. The depths of his eyes were filled with horror. His mouth continuously muttered that word. Emperor Flame. Emperor Flame. Tisk tisk you do, I never imagined that a traitor of the Crossing Adversity sect like you would actually have such a day. Tisk. Suddenly, a dark mocking voice was quietly emitted from the empty space. This caused the entire space to freeze slightly. The expression on Xiaoyan's face instantly became gloomy after this voice was emitted. Third Hall Master, you have finally appeared. Chapter 91. Tisk. I never imagined that the Flame Emperor, who fought so fiercely with us 7 half-emperors back then, would be injured by a mere 5-star half-emperor. When these words were spoken, the old man with a distorted face was the first to tremble. His originally illusory body became even more illusory at this moment. Facing 7 half-martial emperors by himself. Such strength was truly not something that he could contend against. Xiaoyan completely ignored the Third Hall Master's words. With a wave of his hand, the heavy Xian ruler, which was on the verge of shattering, fell into Xiaoyan's palm. As he held the ruler's hilt, Xiaoyan stared at the Third Hall Master with an ice-cold expression and said in an icy tone. Third Hall Master, do you remember where the crack on the ruler's body came from? The Third Hall Master was also stunned by Xiaoyan's words. He casually glanced at the heavy Xian ruler, which was on the verge of shattering. The corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile as he sneered. Of course I remember. This crack was left behind by a palm strike from me. However, this heavy Xian ruler is not bad. The ruler's body is made from flaming meteorite mysterious iron. It is truly indestructible. Even now, I can still remember the numbness I felt at that time. Tsk. Before the Third Hall Master's words had even left his mouth, Xiaoyan's expression had already turned extremely gloomy. A light flashed in his palm as he withdrew the heavy Xian ruler. His body moved as he suddenly executed the Sky Extinction Step and charged toward the Third Hall Master. Tsk, you are not in your best condition now. How can it be so easy to defeat me again? Today this old man has come fully prepared. After the Third Hall Master's words left his mouth, he flipped his shriveled palm across the air. A pitch-black pearl appeared in his hand. This pearl did not look like much. However, the endless darkness within it caused one to feel a sense of pressure for no reason. When Xiaoyan saw the bead for the first time, a palm-sized jade bottle in the middle-grade storage ring on his hand trembled slightly at this moment, as if it was calling out to something. When Xiaoyan saw that the bead was incomparably strange, he did not dare to be the slightest bit careless in his heart. His body, which was charging forward, once again shook. In a flash, he had appeared beside the third hall master. Fire Lotus. A low cry sounded and the natural energy swiftly gathered. The heavenly flame within Xiaoyan's body suddenly moved. In merely an instant, the third hall master and Xiaoyan were already surrounded by the small angry Buddha lotus flame that permeated the sky. If such a large number of angry Buddha lotus flames were to erupt, it was likely that this entire place would be destroyed in an instant. When the third palace master saw this, he let out a sharp cold laugh. The old face under the mask was filled with disdain. His shriveled hand suddenly clenched, and the black bead in his hand instantly exploded. In merely an instant, the empty space, which had just returned to normal, once again turned into endless darkness at this moment. Heavy spirit region open. The third hall master let out an explosive cry. In an instant, the sky was filled with an extremely dense, dark energy. Under this energy, even Xiaoyan immediately felt an incomparably terrifying gravity pressing down on him, causing him to be unable to move even an inch. TSK, in this heavy spirit region, it is time for you to restrain your agility and speed that you are so proud of. Today you, the Flame Emperor, will definitely be mine. The heavy spirit region was forcefully refined by the elites of my Ghost Temple sect by fusing millions of spirits. Once it is unleashed, anyone who is not a member of my Ghost Temple sect or has received my approval will be forcefully suppressed and unable to move even an inch. The third hall master crossed his arms in front of his chest. His eyes were filled with mockery as he looked at Xiaoyan's body, which was almost frozen in the air. A bloody smile appeared at the corner of his mouth under the mask. His body moved and he had already arrived in front of Xiaoyan. A bloodthirsty light flickered in his eyes. His claw struck out and viciously clawed at Xiaoyan's chest. King Kong glass body. Dragon Phoenix ancient armor. Break it. At this moment Xiaoyan did not dare to relax even a little. He suddenly let out an explosive cry in his heart and instantly unleashed the King Kong glass body. The Dragon Phoenix bloodline in his body was instantly activated. Pieces of purple gold dragon scales instantly covered Xiaoyan's entire body. Level 8 collapse. Break the mountains and rivers. With a furious roar, Xiaoyan's 1,000 feet tall body suddenly moved. The terrifying pressure within the heavy spirit region was completely ignored by Xiaoyan at this moment. Flame region. Break it. With a punch, the entire world shook. Heavenly flames that could burn the heavens and devour the earth gushed out from the surface of Xiaoyan's body and swept across the heavy spirit region. 10,000 flames destroy evil. Angry Buddha lotus flame explode. Boom. A rumbling sound that shook the world was suddenly emitted from the heavy spirit region. Yanluo city below had already been blasted into a bottomless abyss. This ancient city had completely disappeared from this world at this moment. The endless crowd had already scattered and fled in all directions. This place had already turned into a true Azura purgatory. The only ones who remained were Su Zhen and his great-grandfather. Of course, Mu Ling was rescued by Xiaoyan. Naturally, he was also waiting in the sky for the end of this battle. Today's battle could be said to be terrifying. It was the biggest battle that they had ever witnessed in their lives. 3 elite half-D-Zun experts and tens of thousands of miles of land were instantly destroyed within a day. Today's battle would definitely be recorded in the annals of the southwestern border. This was because there would definitely be a half-D-Zun expert falling in Yanluo City today. Everything that Xiaoyan had done was naturally reflected in the eyes of the third hall chief. Being able to forcefully perform such swift actions under such great gravity had indeed caused the third hall chief to feel surprised for Xiaoyan in his heart. Xiaoyan's growth ability was indeed extremely frightening. It was likely that it had only been over 20 years since his true rise. However, it was during these 20 years that Xiaoyan's strength was comparable to some of the true geniuses on the Origin Martial continent. However, the more this was the case, the greater the fear that the third hall chief felt for Xiaoyan in his heart became. If Xiaoyan were to truly grow in the future, it was likely that even their ghost temple gate would follow in Hun Tiandi's footsteps. This was something that they would not allow to happen. Hence, the third hall chief must bring Xiaoyan back today. Xiaoyan, the old me admits that you are indeed one of the few great geniuses that the old me acknowledges. Your training talent can be said to be monstrous. Unfortunately, you and I belong to this world. Bringing you back to our sect is an important task for the old me. Hence, I will have to ask you to make a trip with the old me today. Heavy spirit region, spirit solidifying palm. A hoarse cry sounded. The third hall chief's body flashed and withdrew 1,000 feet away. The seal in his hand changed rapidly. Soon after, countless dark black spirits appeared out of nowhere within the heavy spirit region. They were absorbed into the third hall chief's palm following the seal in his hand. Spirit solidifying palm breaking the world. A large dark black palm slowly appeared a couple of dozen feet in front of the third hall master. Waves of ghost-like howls were emitted from it. Countless numbers of souls also surfaced on the palm. Their faces, which appeared to be in extreme pain, appeared even darker and deathly still. You bunch of things that are neither human nor ghost. Today I, Xiaoyan, shall learn a thing or two from you. Flame domain, fallen heart flame, destroying the evil and devouring the spirit. Purifying demonic lotus flame, incinerate the world. The frightening pressure around Xiaoyan's body temporarily disappeared after the angry Buddha lotus flame appeared. Xiaoyan's body also became lighter. Both of his hands were waved. The fallen heart flame and the purifying demonic lotus flame emitted a puff sound as they rose from his palm. The invisible flame emitted wave after wave of invisible fire air waves. The heavy spirit region emitted a chi-chi sound wherever it passed. A large black fog appeared in the empty space. The purifying demonic lotus flame in Xiaoyan's other hand had also turned into a beautiful pink lotus flower. It slowly lingered in Xiaoyan's palm. A circular fire air wave spread with each rotation. The spiritual strength, which had just been refined by the fallen heart flame, was completely refined by the purifying demonic lotus flame at this moment. The palm-sized jade bottle in Xiaoyan's storage ring emitted a weak glow after the spiritual strength was refined to a pure state. Immediately, the pure spiritual strength drifted into Xiaoyan's storage ring uncontrollably. Soon after, it was absorbed by the jade bottle. All of this might seem obvious, but no one present discovered it. Even Guyu was completely unaware of this. Chapter 92. Bang. With a loud bang, Xiaoyan and the third hall master each took 100 steps back. The third hall master did not expect that Xiaoyan was still able to unleash such a powerful strength despite the strong suppression of the heavy spirit region. Xiaoyan's technique was the first that the third hall master had ever seen among the younger generation. The Flame Emperor Xiaoyan really lives up to his reputation. The third hall master panted heavily. A pair of dark eyes stared intently at Xiaoyan under the mask. A somewhat hoarse voice was slowly emitted from his mouth. The third hall master is indeed worthy of being the hall master of the Hall of Souls. Your strength is really not bad. The words from the third hall master's mouth caused Xiaoyan's expression to become even colder. His tone was also extremely cold. At this moment, the two of them appeared to be extremely miserable. The third hall master's black robe was also in tatters. Waves of black fog surged out of the third hall master's body and lingered around him. A fiery red flame palm print could be seen at a glance in front of his chest. The strength of this palm was so great that it caused the third hall master's chest to cave in by an inch. It caused one to involuntarily feel a wave of horror when looking at it. One could vaguely see traces of blood flowing at the corner of the black mask that covered his face. This indicated that the third hall master was injured. Compared to the third hall master, Xiaoyan appeared to be in a much better state. The heavy pressure from the heavy spirit region seemed to have been completely destroyed by Xiaoyan. Of course, this was not the case. With the addition of the Dragon Phoenix ancient armor and the King Kong glass body, Xiaoyan's defense had reached an extremely frightening level. Even though this was the case, the third hall chief's powerful strength still caused Xiaoyan to suffer serious injuries. The golden light that flowed over the enormous body of the King Kong glass body had already become extremely dim. The dragon scales that covered the surface of Xiaoyan's body had already disappeared. Under the golden light, one could vaguely see some fresh blood rolling down Xiaoyan's strong arm. At a glance, it was a little frightening. On Xiaoyan's enormous body, there were a countless number of clear fist imprints on his chest that entered one's eyes. The fist imprints were extremely deep, causing Xiaoyan's chest to appear just like uneven ground. It was a tragic sight that one could not bear to look at. The two of them had exchanged over 100 blows, but they were evenly matched. Although the third hall master was a 7-star ban emperor, he was still forcefully suppressed in front of Xiaoyan's terrifying Dragon Phoenix bloodline. With the Dragon Phoenix bloodline and the Dragon Phoenix ancient armor, Xiaoyan's current defense was comparable to the orthodox ancient Void Dragon tribe. He was a true human-shaped shield. The body of the dragon tribe was so terrifying that the third hall master did not dare to casually face a young dragon. Moreover, Xiaoyan's current defense was so terrifying that the third hall master could not easily suppress him. Fortunately, Xiaoyan's current strength was still too weak. Even with the Dragon Phoenix bloodline as a supplement, it was still difficult for him to suppress the third hall master. This gave the third hall master a chance to counterattack. Otherwise, it was likely that the third hall master would have died in Xiaoyan's hands even if he had the heavy spirit region as his strongest suppression. The third hall master narrowed his eyes and scanned his surroundings. His gaze then landed on Yudu, who was only left with his soul. A light flashed deep in his eyes, and the third hall master's words drifted into Yudu's ears. Old ghost Yudu, I can see that you have been escaping from the Dui sect for many years. I believe that you don't want to easily lose such a happy life, right? The expression in old ghost Yudu's eyes changed. His dry lips trembled slightly. He lifted his eyelids, only to see that the third hall master was focusing all his attention on Xiaoyan. Only then did he react and transmit a question back. Who exactly are you? TSK. Old ghost Yudu, don't tell me that you can't tell who I am. You are that group of ghost things from the Ghost Temple sect. The third hall master's words were clear. The expression in Yudu's eyes became increasingly fearful as he immediately replied. However, the third hall master could not help but laugh mockingly. What are the people from my Ghost Temple sect? TSK. Compared to my Ghost Temple sect, your Dui sect doesn't seem to be any better. For the sake of upgrading his woeful poison body and allowing himself to possess a genuine woeful poison body, he actually wanted to forcefully devour the sect's holy maiden. Such methods are not the least bit inferior to those of my Ghost Temple sect. TSK. The old me has already severed my relationship with the Dui sect. What does the matter of the Dui sect have to do with the old me? If you have something to say, just say it. If there is nothing, don't implicate the old me. The old me is a person who is about to die. It is not in vain to seek longevity. The third hall master laughed sinisterly when he heard this. He ignored the indifference on Yudu's face as he smiled and said, That's right. You, whose strength is not a Do-di, will indeed not be able to last for long in your spiritual state. Although there are 3 living bodies here, their strength is ultimately insufficient to accommodate your spirit. The third hall master paused when he spoke until this point. He did not say anything else. A desolate dark glow appeared deep within Yudu's eyes. There was also fear contained within it. Who didn't fear death? Even if it was Yudu, an old monster who had lived for God knows how many years, if he could survive, Yudu would definitely not think about facing death. The third hall master had also seen this little fear deep within Yudu's heart. Hence, he spoke in such a manner in order to stir up the hope of living in Yudu's heart. You want the old me to join hands with you to deal with this matter together? Yudu's dry throat involuntarily moved a little. He forcefully suppressed the emotions in his heart and opened his mouth to ask. The third hall master also understood in his heart when he saw this. He coldly laughed in his heart and transmitted a message. Brother Yudu is indeed worthy of being a person who has lived for a long time. This is exactly what I am thinking in my heart. Yudu had already been completely bewitched by the third hall master with these words. Even though he was still on guard in his heart, how could the current Yudu fight against the third hall master who was at his peak condition? All of this was definitely within the third hall master's control. The things that had happened between the two of them might appear to have taken a long time, but if they were to be separated, it was merely a matter of a few breaths. A bandit was able to freely use any amount of time. A few breaths was already enough for them to do many things. The two of them had just finished their discussion when the third hall master had already focused all of his attention on Xiaoyan. His eyes narrowed and a stern expression flashed across them. Flame D Xiaoyan TSK. Try and receive an attack from the old me. Heavy spirit region. Rise for me. An explosive cry sounded. Another layer of dark black ink-like darkness came pressing down on Xiaoyan's body outside of the empty space that was covered by an endless amount of flame. In just an instant, the flame domain that Xiaoyan had created with endless heavenly flames was forcefully pushed back, as if it had shrunk. It only stopped when it was 1,000 feet away from Xiaoyan's body. Xiaoyan could not help but frown when he saw this. This heavy spirit region was actually so powerful. Even with the support of the flame domain, Xiaoyan still felt an extremely powerful gravitational force pressing down on his body, causing Xiaoyan's aura to become slightly heavier. When the third hall master saw this, the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer under the mask. His body moved and he retreated 100 steps. He raised both of his hands in front of his chest, and the seals in his hands changed rapidly. The space in front of the third hall master twisted, and a pitch-black darkness appeared in front of him. Without any hesitation, the third hall master plunged into it. Instantly, within the range of Xiaoyan's spiritual power, All of the third Hall Master's aura disappeared instantly, as if he had never appeared. It was extremely strange. Xiao Yan's expression changed slightly. He did not expect the third Hall Master to have such a trick up his sleeve. In this case, it would be much more difficult to deal with the third Hall Master. Just as Xiao Yan was about to move, the space beside him surged. Wave-like ripples spread out from the space beside Xiao Yan. Immediately, a withered palm suddenly slammed out, viciously slamming towards Xiao Yan's head. Xiao Yan was initially shocked by this sudden attack, but he quickly reacted. As his body retreated, he also slammed out a palm, violently slamming it against the palm. At the moment of collision, a huge force was transmitted from Xiao Yan's palm, forcing Xiao Yan to take half a step back. On the other hand, Xiao Yan's powerful palm slammed out across the air, but it did not hit anything. What exactly is this thing? It's actually so powerful. Not only did his attack fail, but he had also suffered a hidden loss. This caused Xiao Yan to feel extremely fearful in his heart. However, even though he was fearful, Xiao Yan also understood in his heart that the third Hall Master would not be able to hold on for long given his current condition. Otherwise, he would have used this method from the start. After making up his mind, Xiao Yan also poured out all of his spiritual strength, wrapping it within 100 feet radius around him. Only in this way would Xiao Yan be able to react as quickly as possible when danger approached. With a chi sound, Xiao Yan's body turned on the spot. His palm violently slammed out, violently slamming towards a certain turbulent space behind him. Yellow Spring Palm. Xiao Yan threw his palm forward and the turbulent space instantly stilled. Immediately, it shook a couple of times before it recovered its calmness. Xiao Yan, on the other hand, continued to carefully observe the space around him as he waited for the third Hall Master to appear. Bang! Buddha Palm. Suddenly, the space above Xiao Yan's head became distorted. An enormous towering palm appeared out of nowhere. It carried an imposing aura that could cover the sky as it pressed down on Xiao Yan. The strength of the palm was so great that it was difficult for Xiao Yan's body to move like a stone statue. However, how could Xiao Yan allow himself to be trampled on? The dou qi in his body suddenly erupted. The strength of the heavenly flame instantly spread out. The burning heavenly flame instantly wrapped around Xiao Yan, forming a countless number of fire clusters of similar size within 1,000 feet of Xiao Yan. Soon after, under a thought from Xiao Yan, the countless number of fire clusters suddenly flickered. They instantly transformed into countless number of fire pillars that shot towards the sky. Their aura was like a rainbow as they attempted to break the enormous palm. The third Hall Master was clearly quite afraid of Xiao Yan's heavenly flame. Hence, he revealed his body from the heavy spirit region. In a flash, he had already appeared above the enormous palm. The enormous force under his feet shook. The speed of the enormous palm, which was already swiftly slamming down, became a little faster. In an instant, it collided with the countless number of fire pillars. Bang! A wild and ferocious storm instantly swept across the entire sky, causing the land within a radius of 10,000 miles to be covered by a layer of fog. The originally clear sky also turned dark at this moment. The countless number of fire pillars that reached the sky still stood proudly in the sky within the heavy spirit region. They each occupied a piece of land with the enormous palm, standing equally against it. The third Hall Master was clearly extremely dissatisfied with this. Even after using the suppression of the heavy spirit region, he was still unable to quickly finish off Xiao Yan. If news of this were to spread, his reputation as the Hall Master would likely become a laughing stock. Humph! With a cold snort, the third Hall Master suddenly waved his hand. The seals in his hand rapidly changed. Soon after, one could see the heavy spirit region, which encompassed the entire world, rapidly shrink at this moment. In just a moment, the heavy spirit region, which covered the entire sky, had already shrunk to a few thousand feet in size. The power within it was naturally stacked up. After the third Hall Master completed all of this, Xiao Yan's expression became completely grave. At this moment, it was extremely difficult for Xiao Yan to even move a finger. Even the fire pillars that reached the sky seemed to be forcefully pressed down by this extremely frightening gravity. One could imagine the true power of the heavy spirit region. The muscles all over Xiao Yan's body tensed up. The Dragon Phoenix bloodline in his body continued to circulate. The Dragon Phoenix ancient armor and the King Kong glass body were once again displayed. Even so, Xiao Yan still did not have enough strength to resist the heavy spirit region. In the sky, the endless number of fire pillars had already been continuously pressed down by the enormous hand. It was likely that Xiao Yan would soon become its next prey. Ha! A cry was emitted from his throat with great difficulty. The heavenly flame within Xiaoyan's body suddenly swept over his entire body. Immediately, it shrank into the middle of the vortex within Xiaoyan's body and transformed into the appearance of an old man. The old man's face was ruddy. His long hair of various colors was the most eye-catching. His long hair was actually divided into 21 different colors. The appearance of this old man was that of the two-she ancient god. However, this old man was merely formed from the emperor flame at this moment. He was not the true two-she ancient god. A brilliant flame glow suddenly shot out from deep within Xiaoyan's eyes the moment the old man returned to his position. The veins on his forehead swiftly protruded. His strong body once again grew by a couple of feet. His entire body shook as an explosive roar was emitted from Xiaoyan's mouth towards the sky. Heavenly flame merge, extermination fire body. Activate. His voice had just sounded when the two-she ancient god's tightly shut eyes within Xiaoyan's body suddenly opened. A vast and mighty glow rose to the sky. In an instant it completely merged with Xiaoyan. In an instant, Xiaoyan's body, which had grown by 1,000 feet from the King Kong glass body, once again swelled. A wave of frightening flame strength suddenly swept out from deep within Xiaoyan's body, causing this enormous body of Xiaoyan to instantly transform into a completely flaming person. The heavenly flame that incinerated the sky continued to sweep out from within Xiaoyan's body. The flame domain that was agglomerated from the heavenly flame suddenly emitted a bang sound. The heavy spirit region, which had shrunk by a couple of times, emitted a bang sound as it was forcefully blasted apart. The flame domain that emitted a high temperature instantly swept apart like floodwater. Roar. Fallen heart flame. Purifying demonic lotus flame. Burn for me. A rolling thunder-like roar was emitted from Xiaoyan's mouth, causing the entire place to tremble unceasingly. Xiaoyan's entire body shook. His right hand was suddenly waved. Immediately he clenched it with great force. The heavenly flame flowed out from between the gaps of Xiaoyan's fist like flowing water. Immediately Xiaoyan's right arm once again shook. His foot suddenly stomped on the empty air. Endless heavenly flame shot out from under Xiaoyan's feet, entering deep into the ground and disappearing. Xiaoyan's enormous body borrowed the force and suddenly charged toward the enormous palm. In merely an instant he had already arrived under this enormous palm. Xiaoyan's fist was thrown out. A frightening fist wind was wrapped around a frightening heavenly flame that could incinerate the empty air. It suddenly smashed into the enormous palm. The purifying demonic lotus flame and the fallen heart flame that wrapped around Xiaoyan's body instantly and easily refined the black fog around him. However, Xiaoyan's movements did not stop. His fist had yet to land when another punch was already thrown out. It violently smashed into the enormous palm that blotted out the sun. The frightening aura caused the entire sky to tremble repeatedly. It had the momentum to break the sky. Roar. Angry Buddha lotus flame, agglomerate. Xiaoyan's right hand suddenly waved. Immediately he clenched it across the air. When he opened it once again, a three-colored fire lotus the size of a soccer ball had already appeared in Xiaoyan's palm. Without any hesitation, Xiaoyan's palm was violently thrown out. The places where the palm wind passed were completely refined by the fallen heart flame and the purifying demonic lotus flame. Even when Xiaoyan sent the angry Buddha lotus flame into his palm, he did not pause even a little. Roar. Xiaoyan's body flashed and he explosively withdrew by 100 steps. Suddenly he let out a long roar towards the sky. The strength of the heavenly flame instantly covered the sky. After the long roar, the entire place was immediately wrapped by a wild and violent suction force. The endless black fog was completely swallowed by Xiaoyan into his body. Even a portion of the enormous palm that reached the sky was swallowed and refined by Xiaoyan. The third hall master's face was indifferent in the face of all of this. He naturally knew that it was impossible to rely on this palm to subdue Xiaoyan. However, this was not his aim. Hence, he would naturally not stop Xiaoyan from doing whatever he wanted. What he wanted now was for Xiaoyan to exhaust himself. After all, even he did not have the confidence to completely defeat a powerful Xiaoyan. However, the thing that caused the third hall master to be surprised was that this was the first time that he had seen this kind of secret technique that Xiaoyan was using. It was even able to forcefully raise the strength of a bandy expert by so much. This kind of secret technique could be said to be terrifying. Although the third hall master was tempted, he was not stupid. He could naturally tell that it was impossible to use this kind of secret technique without the support of many heavenly flames. Roar. A moment later, the originally deep and dark light on the enormous palm that blotted out the sun under the third hall master's feet had already become extremely dim. It was likely that the energy within it had already been completely swallowed and refined by Xiaoyan. Grade 8 collapse. With an explosive cry, Xiaoyan's body shook in the air. His foot once again violently stomped on the empty air. His body flashed and completely shattered the enormous palm, turning it into light spots that permeated the sky. Soon after, Xiaoyan's fist directly struck the third hall master's face, intending to kill the third hall master in one blow. At this moment, Xiaoyan was completely aware that the time that he could maintain the extermination fire body was almost up. If he was unable to quickly finish off the third hall master during this period of time, it was likely that he would leave behind quite a lot of trouble in the future. Xiaoyan's fist pierced through the empty air. Even though he was a great distance away, the blazing wind still caused the third hall master to feel a fiery heat all over his body. With regards to this, the third hall master naturally did not dare to underestimate it. Fortunately, he had a card up his sleeve and was not the slightest bit afraid of Xiaoyan's unstoppable attack. Just as Xiaoyan was within 100 feet of the third hall master, a ruthless expression suddenly flashed across the third hall master's eyes. He violently stomped on the empty air and an extremely frightening gravity suddenly pressed down on Xiaoyan's head. At the same time, a deep and dark light flashed under Xiaoyan's feet, causing Xiaoyan's charging body to suddenly be fixed in the empty air, unable to move even a little. The strength of that pressure caused Xiaoyan's frightening extermination fire body to be completely absorbed into his body in less than an instant. His enormous body also instantly returned to its original form. The clothes on Xiaoyan's body were completely shattered. The long robe on his upper body had long since disappeared. His white body was even more eye-catching in this darkness. This was especially the case when there was a hollow green-colored jade pendant in front of Xiaoyan's chest. That was a gift that Lian Er had given Xiaoyan before he left Qingyang City. She said that it was the only thing her grandmother had left for her. Old ghost, you do. If you don't act now, when will you? The third hall master also suddenly let out an explosive roar at this moment. It was not difficult to hear that even the third hall master was anxious within his voice. From the looks of it, he was not as relaxed as he appeared to be earlier when he forcefully suppressed Xiaoyan. When old ghost you do heard this, a glint instantly flashed deep within his eyes. His body flashed and he had already appeared between Xiaoyan and the third hall master. His somewhat illusory body made Yudu appear even weaker at this moment. However, his eyes were still flickering with an excited glow. Yudu's heart was naturally extremely excited to be able to recover his physical body and destroy Xiaoyan to take revenge for his physical body. The corners of old ghost Yudu's mouth involuntarily revealed a cruel smile as he stood in front of Xiaoyan. Immediately, his eyes swept over and paused for a moment before they were fixed on the jade pendant. In an instant, Yudu's eyes suddenly widened. An expression of disbelief flashed deep within his pupils. It was a long while later before Yudu's eyes shifted away from the jade pendant with great difficulty. He looked at Xiaoyan and cried out sternly. "Tell me where that girl is and I guarantee that I will leave you with a wisp of your soul." Flowing Time's comment. As a writer, Flowing Time is very apologetic. Due to my lack of experience, there are still many mistakes in the planning of the chapters. Perhaps I haven't even thought about the later parts of the novel. This is indeed a long-term goal, but I've forgotten about the recent events. I'm really sorry. Flowing Time is always planning for the various characters in the future. Perhaps I haven't thought it through for a long time, but I still can't help but think about the later parts of the plot. This book may not have much novelty because there was no overly difficult hurdle set for the main character during the writing process. However, this point will be changed as much as possible in the next volume. There will be more difficult hurdles. Life and death may not be something that I am willing to see, but time will do its best to show it. After all, the road of life is not an asphalt road and it is not so smooth. Xiaoyan should have a moment of life and death. This is what I, as the author, believe. Of course, everyone knows what the ending will be. This path belongs to Xiaoyan and this scene is also prepared for Xiaoyan. However, there are many main characters. Sometimes, whether to remove some of the main characters is a big problem in Time's heart. If you remove some of them, many people will think that this is not in line with Xiaoyan's strength. This is because as long as Xiaoyan has the slightest bit of hope, his friends will definitely not die. However, if you don't remove them, then the entire book will feel very cliché. In the end, everyone who has a good relationship with Xiaoyan will be fine. Therefore, this is a very difficult point. In addition, there is a main character that I have chosen before. She is Xiaoyan's confidant. Deep in my heart, I don't want anything to happen to her. However, for the sake of the sad atmosphere, I want her to suffer for once. This person is our nation's little sister, the little fairy doctor. Of course, if you are unwilling, please state it in the book review and comments section. Time will also remove it. I only hope that everyone will like it. Chapter 93. Tell me where that girl is and I guarantee that I will leave you with a wisp of your soul. Old Ghost Yudu's eyes stared intently at Xiaoyan. An endless amount of greed was revealed in his eyes. His expression appeared somewhat ferocious. His originally distorted face caused one to feel even more terrified at this moment. Xiaoyan could not help but frown when he heard Yudu's words. He thought to himself, is this old ghost Yudu asking me about Lianer? Could it be that Lianer's woeful poison body is related to the Crossing Disaster sect? The change in expression on Xiaoyan's face was naturally captured by the astute old ghost Yudu when he saw Xiaoyan's expression. He was even more certain that Xiaoyan, who was in front of him, knew the whereabouts of the little girl he had been searching for all this while. A cold smile involuntarily flashed across the corners of Yudu's mouth. It looked extremely strange and sinister. After which, he slowly lifted his slightly transparent palm and suddenly waved it. His palm turned into a claw and stood upright in front of Xiaoyan. His 5 shriveled yet incomparably sharp fingers caused tiny cracks to involuntarily appear on Xiaoyan's face. Drops of bright red blood spread out. In the withered wind, Xiaoyan looked like an assassin who had walked through a sea of blood. His entire body was filled with a vicious aura. Upon seeing this scene, the third hall master, who was standing behind old Ghost Yudu, could not help but frown. What old Ghost Yudu had said earlier naturally fell into the third hall master's ears. However, the third hall master did not have any impression of the little girl that old Ghost Yudu had mentioned. One must know that ever since Xiaoyan came to the Yuanwu continent, he had been constantly being pursued by the third hall master and the others. If there was such an eye-catching little girl by his side, they would definitely know. However, the scene today caused him to repeatedly ponder. He did not expect that old Ghost Yudu was still hiding something from him and even wanted to secretly scheme against him. This person really had unfathomable motives. However, after the third hall master noticed the rich greed in old Ghost Yudu's eyes, his doubtful expression immediately changed as though he had thought of something. A strange look involuntarily flashed across his eyes as he looked at Xiaoyan. How is it? As long as you tell this old man where that little girl is now, this old man will leave behind a wisp of essence spirit for you today. The misunderstanding between the two of us today will also end here. I will walk my own path and you will walk your own path. In the future, we will have nothing to do with each other. Xiaoyan's heart involuntarily trembled a little as he sensed the unprecedented dangerous aura in front of him. He would naturally not reveal the matter regarding Lianer. The fact that Xiaoyan was able to grow to such an extent meant that his experience was comparable to some genuine old demons. In Xiaoyan's eyes, the words from old Ghost Yudu's mouth were already filled with loopholes. Leaving behind a strand of his soul was no different from directly erasing him. At most, it would only allow him to struggle in this world for a while longer. This fellow would definitely not give him the slightest chance of survival. Perhaps old Ghost Yudu's actions were even more vicious than directly killing him. With Xiaoyan's personality, how could he possibly submit to such things? He would rather be a heroic spirit than a coward. In the face of a great calamity, he did not fear death. This was the real reason why Xiaoyan was able to grow to such an extent. With this thought in mind, a heroic spirit rose in Xiaoyan's heart. The aura in his eyes solidified, and a glint flashed across them. The gaze with which he looked at old Ghost Yudu became increasingly sharp. His eyes flashed, and the crack at the corner of his eyes caused the corners of Xiaoyan's eyes to involuntarily tremble. Although this scene was not considered eye-catching, it was still reflected in old Ghost Yudu's eyes. Immediately, old Ghost Yudu released a cold laugh in his heart. As expected, the stronger one is, the more one fears death. TSK. As long as Xiaoyan's life falls into this old man's hands today, I will see if you will obediently explain yourself. A thought passed through old Ghost Yudu's mind, and the vigorous spiritual strength in his body once again gathered between his fingers. His originally sharp aura soared once again. This time, Xiaoyan's facial features became a little distorted under this force. Flame Emperor Xiaoyan, I wonder if you have thought it through? As long as you can tell me where that little girl is now, I will guarantee that your soul will not be destroyed today. I will allow you to regain your physical body. Old Ghost Yudu's eyes suddenly became sharp. He waved his hand and the space in front of Xiao Yan instantly collapsed. The pitch-black and deep endless void gave one a chilling feeling of being devoured. It was as though once one entered, one would never be able to come out alive. Xiao Yan's expression involuntarily changed when he saw this. At this moment he was being suppressed by the third hall master's full strength, and the might of the heavy spirit region poured out in torrents. Even Xiao Yan would have difficulty turning the situation around at this moment. If old Ghost Yudu really attacked him, it was likely that he would really take a step into the door of life and death today. Old Ghost Yudu was quite satisfied with the change in Xiao Yan's expression. What he wanted to see was the frightened expression on Xiao Yan's face. As long as this was the case, he would feel even more comfortable teasing Xiao Yan. He wanted Xiao Yan to lose all the dignity that belonged to a half-emperor expert. Xiao Yan's heart gradually calmed down in response to this. It seemed that old Ghost Yudu only wanted to toy with him. However, how could Xiao Yan be manipulated by others? His expression immediately changed and he coldly smiled at old Ghost Yudu. He laughed. "Looks like you don't really dare to kill me." Old Ghost Yudu's expression changed slightly, and he coldly snorted. His shriveled hand grabbed Xiao Yan's neck, and he suddenly tightened his grip. Xiao Yan's face was already flushed red from suffocation, but his expression when he looked at old Ghost Yudu still did not show the slightest bit of fear. With a cold snort, old Ghost Yudu loosened his grip and removed it from Xiao Yan's neck. Immediately he coldly said, "You are really bold. You actually dare to use this to provoke this old man." Xiao Yan smiled when he heard this. He coughed and panted for a while, and his flushed face gradually faded. He ignored old Ghost Yudu's cold words, and his eyes stared straight at old Ghost Yudu. He coldly laughed and said, "Since you want to obtain something from me, I can naturally ask you to do something for me. Don't you think so?" Old Ghost Yudu narrowed his eyes. He naturally understood why Xiao Yan said these words. At this moment he was under the control of the heavy spirit region. The reason why he said these words was because he wanted him to attack the third hall master behind him. When the third hall master heard Xiao Yan's words, he could not help but be slightly shocked. The expression on his face also became ugly. Did this old Ghost Yudu really dare to attack him? Old Ghost Yudu. This Xiao Yan is a great enemy of both of us. At this moment, the old me has restrained him with great difficulty. If you were to change your mind at this moment, forget about the old me, it is likely that the both of us will lose our old lives here today. At this critical moment, the third hall master could not help but shout at old Ghost Yudu, hoping that he would be able to attack Xiao Yan first. After all, he did not wish for his plan to kill two birds with one stone to be destroyed by Xiao Yan. When old Ghost Yudu heard the third hall master's words, his heart moved slightly. He had personally experienced Xiao Yan's fighting strength. Forget about the current him, even if Xiao Yan was at his peak with the protection of the heavenly flame, he would definitely not be a match for him. Now, he naturally did not want to let go of such a good opportunity. However, the jade pendant on Xiao Yan's chest was truly tempting him. Others might not know about that little girl, but he was someone who came from the Dui sect. How could he not know? That little girl would allow him to become a truly powerful person. At that time, forget about the Dui sect, it was likely that even the strongest faction would have to think twice before facing him. One side was life and the other side was strength. One could not have both the fish and the bear's paw. Today he could only choose one. Old Ghost Yudu narrowed his eyes into a line as he looked at Xiao Yan. Immediately, he glanced at the third hall master from the corner of his eyes. If either of these two people were to survive, they would definitely be a great threat to him. If he wanted to live, then the two people beside him must die today. A ruthless look flashed across the depths of his eyes. Two powerful half-martial emperors actually wanted him, a seriously injured person, to judge their life and death. To him, this was a kind of opportunity. One cannot have both the fish and the bear's paw. TSK. Today this old man wants to see if this old man can have both. Old Ghost Yudu glanced at Xiao Yan with a pitiful expression. After which, he used the corner of his eyes to stare at the third hall master behind him. Old Ghost Yudu licked his dry lips in a bloodthirsty manner and sneered at Xiao Yan. Flame Emperor Xiao Yan. TSK. I'm sorry, but this old man still chooses to live. After all, without life, what is the use of strength? Before his voice sounded, the expression on Xiao Yan's face had already become solemn. This old Ghost Yudu clearly intended to kill him. When the third hall master, who was standing behind old Ghost Yudu, heard these words of old Ghost Yudu, he involuntarily let out a cold laugh in his heart. As long as Xiao Yan was defeated, no one in Yanluo City would be able to fight against him today. On the other side, without waiting for Xiaoyan to make a move, old Ghost Yudu's terrifying finger pointed at the spot between Xiaoyan's brows. At the same time, a somewhat hoarse cry was emitted from old Ghost Yudu's mouth. Poison finger. As old Ghost Yudu cried out, a shriveled palm suddenly smashed towards the third hall master's chest behind him. This seemingly ordinary palm caused the entire world to shake the moment it was unleashed. In an instant, the empty space shattered, and the area within 100-mile radius around the three of them was turned into nothingness. A half-martial emperor was indeed extremely powerful. Even though his body was seriously injured, he was still able to attract the might of the world. He was indeed worthy of being called a true peak expert in the continent. The third hall master's expression had already turned into one of shock the moment the palm struck. He did not expect old Ghost Yudu to actually dare to attack him. However, the opportunity had already passed, and it was already too late for him to do anything. Additionally, with the control of the heavy spirit region, it was even more impossible for him to dodge. Hence, he could only stand and watch the attack arrive. In merely an instant, old Ghost Yudu's towering finger had already arrived in front of Xiaoyan. The strong and ferocious wind caused Xiaoyan's long hair to dance continuously. Xiaoyan also involuntarily shut his eyes, as though he was waiting for the moment of death to arrive. Is this really the only way, Ancestor Xiaoxian Sunair Kailin? I never expected that I will have to completely leave all of you so soon after arriving in this strange world. At this moment, a bitterness involuntarily surged into Xiaoyan's heart. The reluctance to part with Sun Er and Kailin in his heart was indescribable. Additionally, he felt guilt towards Xiaoxian. Bang! An explosive sound appeared. Two figures flew out from the pitch-black darkness in the sky. Soon after, they heavily smashed into the endless abyss, and their figures disappeared. End of chapter? I have left something at the end to let everyone guess what exactly happened. Will old Ghost Yudu's plan of getting both the fish and the bear's paw work? Additionally, please collect it. Chapter 94. Above the horizon in the endless void, two figures flew out with a loud bang. They crossed each other in midair and then plunged into the vast and endless abyss. Their figures disappeared in a flash. In the void, a circle of white flame ripples spread out. Everywhere it passed, even the endless void could not help but tremble. This was enough to show how powerful it was. A young man covered in wounds stood in the middle of the flame ripple. Fresh blood covered his body as he stood in the empty space in a daze. The expression on his face was a little dull because of this sudden unexpected change. Only after a dozen breaths later did the eyes of the man suddenly emit a bright glow of having survived a calamity. Old Gu, you have intervened. However, didn't you say? This man was surprisingly Xiaoyan, who was about to be struck by old Ghost Yudu's poison centipede finger earlier. If that finger had struck, Xiaoyan's soul would have been destroyed and he would have completely disappeared from this world. However, from the looks of it, it seemed that Guyu had saved him. Before Xiaoyan could speak, Guyu took over. He curled his lips and snorted softly. His tone was strange as he spoke. Brat, don't be so happy. This old me is not in the mood to save you. However, this old me finds that little brat from earlier an eyesore. Hence, I intervened to teach him a lesson. However, the body of a bandit is not even comparable to an ant in front of this old me. You actually dare to speak such arrogant words and look down on my heavenly flame body. Humph, do you really think that this old me is made of mud? Xiaoyan felt warmth in his heart upon hearing this. Although Guyu had said this, he would not have intervened in such a dangerous situation if he had not wanted to save Xiaoyan. These words were merely an excuse for himself. Old Gu, thank you very much. The corners of Xiaoyan's mouth lifted into a warm smile. He thanked Guyu in his heart, but he was fooled by Guyu's soft snort. Xiaoyan smiled and did not say anything else. Instead, he turned his eyes to the endless abyss below him. Although Guyu's attack was powerful, his objective was not to kill old Ghost Yudu. Instead, it was to send him flying. After all, he would definitely not disobey the orders of the Tu Xianxia God, even though he had already violated the orders of the Tu Xianxia God. With Guyu's powerful attack, the heavy spirit region, which had been ruthlessly suppressing Xiaoyan, was broken by the bone-chilling flame. In front of Guyu's strength, the heavy spirit region, which Xiaoyan found extremely troublesome, was merely a toy that could be destroyed in the blink of an eye. At this moment, the figures of old Ghost Yudu and the third hall master were suspended in the ink-black void with great difficulty under the endless abyss. Old Ghost Yudu's body, which was continuously turning illusory, appeared as though it did not exist after being struck by Guyu's blazing bone-chilling flame. If it was not for the layer of dim fluorescent light on the surface of his body and the endless darkness, it was likely that one would not be able to see his body. Although the third hall master's condition was a little better compared to old Ghost Yudu, it was clearly not much better. His black robes had already been turned into nothingness by the bone-chilling flame. The dense black fog lingering around his body had also become dark at this moment. It was possible to vaguely see a skinny corpse-like body within it. The strange mask that covered his face had also disappeared, revealing a bone-like face. A pair of shady old eyes seemed to be embedded in the depths of his eye sockets, and his bony face looked as if only a piece of skull was left. Just what was that earlier? Did Xiaoyan's heavenly flame erupt? Or did he use that Buddha's fiery lotus? The shady old eyes of the third hall master appeared to have been shut. Both of his eyes stared intently at the empty space in front of him. The monstrous fury in his heart caused the space itself to become a little distorted. The third hall master's shriveled hand rubbed the corner of his chin. There was a deep wound at that spot, so deep that one could see his bone. However, the third hall master did his best to suppress it. Old Ghost Yudu, you old thing who will not die. You are really tired of living. You actually dared to scheme against the old me. You have caused the old me to end up in such a state. Today the old me will definitely capture the both of you even if I have to use everything I have. Old Ghost Yudu, today the old me will allow you to witness the tactics of my ghost temple gate. In the sky, Xiaoyan's tensed body lasted for a full 15 minutes. Finally, his entire body softened and he sat down in the empty space. His mouth continued to pant coarsely. The tight muscles all over his body suddenly relaxed. Sweat gushed out from the pores all over his body like a fountain, causing the wounds all over Xiaoyan's body to erupt. Waves of heart-piercing pain caused Xiaoyan to involuntarily suck in a breath of cool air. After swiftly consuming a few grade 9 energy recovery pills, Xiaoyan's body sat cross-legged in the empty space. The flame art chi method in his body rapidly circulated. In an instant, the entire sky changed color. The natural energy appeared from the empty space and covered the sun. It was like a cloud that swept across the entire sky. Above Xiaoyan's head, a tornado that was 1,000 feet wide poured down with a vast natural energy. It was like a meteor waterfall that flowed into Xiaoyan's body. Unfortunately, even with such a monstrous power in the outside world, when the natural energy entered Xiaoyan's body, it was like a small stream of water, utterly inadequate. It was likely that Xiaoyan would not be able to quickly recover within a short period of time. In the endless abyss, old Ghost Yudu's face was grave as he looked at the third hall master in front of him. His increasingly faint soul made him appear even weaker at this moment. Why? Do you want to deal with the old me? Old Ghost Yudu vigilantly watched the third hall master. It was a long while later before he let out a cold snort and said in a cold voice. The third hall master could not help but curl the corners of his mouth when he heard this. He revealed a cold smile and let out a cold snort. His eyes stared at old Ghost Yudu and sneered. What? You just launched a sneak attack on the old me and now you want to wash your hands of it and act like nothing happened? Old Ghost Yudu laughed coldly when he heard this. He had already expected the third hall master to say such a thing. The moment the third hall master's words sounded, old Ghost Yudu laughed coldly and replied. Since you also have ulterior motives against the old me, it is not impossible for me to give you a warning first. Warning? What a good warning. Since you want to say that I have ulterior motives against you, I will let you see just what kind of ulterior motives I have for you today. Before his voice sounded, the third hall master had already absorbed the black fog that lingered around his body into his body. Immediately after, he put his shriveled hands in front of his chest. His palms moved rapidly and numerous complicated seals were quickly formed. Circles of invisible ripples formed in the space in front of him. When old Ghost Yudu saw this, his originally solemn face instantly turned as pale as a sheet of paper. He looked at the third hall master as though he had seen the king of hell. He was incomparably terrified. Perhaps other people did not know this move that the third hall master was using at this moment, but Yudu was someone who came from a faction in the middle region. He was naturally very clear about this secret technique of a faction in the middle region. The spirit-devouring skill was the inner sect chi method of the Ghost Slaughter sect. Its greatest characteristic was that it could forcefully devour other people's souls and maximize the strength of the original body into one's own body. Although the backlash after using this chi method was extremely great, it was still a last resort. At this moment, the third hall master was obviously preparing to forcefully devour old Ghost Yudu's soul and add it to his original body to deal with Xiaoyan. In this way, not only would he be able to eliminate old Ghost Yudu, but he would also be able to capture Xiaoyan. it would be killing two birds with one stone. Even if he ended up being seriously injured, as long as he could bring Xiaoyan back, the third hall master was certain that not only would his strength recover, but his strength and status would also rise in the sect. Therefore, how could he not give it his all? Have you really gone mad? You actually dare to use such a chi method that destroys your essence for the sake of Xiaoyan? Are you really seeking death? At this moment, old Ghost Yudu's heart had become abnormally terrified. The third hall master was obviously not trying to scare him. If he was allowed to continue, his old life would really end here today. Old Ghost Yudu clenched his teeth. A ferocious expression was revealed on his face. Both of his hands were swiftly lifted and he stood in front of the third hall master. A thought passed through his heart and numerous seals were swiftly formed. When the seals in old Ghost Yudu's hands changed, the spiritual strength all over old Ghost Yudu's body was absorbed into his body and swiftly agglomerated. A moment later, it transformed into a bright bead the size of an egg. This bead was old Ghost Yudu's spiritual essence. The heart of the third hall master involuntarily tightened when he saw this scene. Old Ghost Yudu was clearly intending to use the self-destruction of his soul to drag him into the abyss. Humph! If you want to die, you want to bring the old me along. How ruthless. However, in front of the spirit-devouring art of the old me, you can only dream. Before his voice sounded, the hand movements of the third hall master suddenly increased. The do qi in his body was like a flowing river as it poured out. In merely a couple of breaths, the seals in the hands of the third hall master had entered the final stage. His hand movements did not stop. The third hall master lifted his hand and his sharp fingernail was like a blade as it cut across his brow. A bloody scar appeared as a drop of blood from his brow dripped onto the tip of the third hall master's finger. Blood seal agglomerate. A stern cry sounded as the bloody finger of the third hall master swiftly drew in the air in front of him. An extremely strange blood seal was swiftly formed. Without any hesitation, the third hall master threw a palm forward. The blood seal also imprinted itself into old Ghost Yudu's chest at that instant. Suddenly, a bright red glaring blood light shot from old Ghost Yudu's body to the sky. The spiritual essence that was swiftly forming within old Ghost Yudu's body also instantly froze at this moment. The expression of old Ghost Yudu had already turned deathly pale the moment the blood seal appeared. Even the spirit would be afraid when the blood seal appeared. This was the impression that the people of the Yuanwu continent had of the blood seal. In front of the blood seal, unless one's spiritual strength far exceeded the other parties, one would only end up being suppressed. The blood seal of the ghost obliterating sect had never failed before. TSK 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 TSK, you will not be able to escape death today. Spirit devouring art, devouring the heavens and spirit. With an explosive cry, the space in front of the third hall master suddenly exploded. Pitch-black fog swept out in all directions, instantly wrapping old Ghost Yudu's spirit and beginning to refine it. At the same time, 10,000 miles away, two figures, one old and one young, were rapidly rushing towards the savage ancient city. From the looks of it, it was no different from fleeing for their lives. Suddenly, the old man's body abruptly paused as he stood in the air, his face instantly filled with astonishment. Elder you, don't say anything else, quickly leave. I can't hold on for much longer. Quickly leave this place and find a baby boy for me. Quickly. Before his voice faded, the old man had already grabbed the young man and fled into the distance. The old man and the young man were Su Zhen and his great-grandfather. After witnessing Xiao Yan's power, Su Zhen's great-grandfather had quickly fled Yanluo City with him. As for the other members of the Su clan, they had died in the city due to their serious injuries. Now, only Su Zhen and his great-grandfather were left in the huge Su clan. All of this had happened in a single day. A day ago they were living like true sacred emperors. In a single day they had been destroyed. The affairs of the world were unpredictable. It was truly pitiful and lamentable. Chapter 95. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. A wild and violent storm swept in all directions in the distant sky. Waves of pure natural energy gathered from a tornado that seemed to reach the sky. The dense and heavy natural energy transformed into a large amount of extremely pure energy liquid at this moment and poured into the body of the human figure below the tornado. This vast scene continued for a full 2 hours before the man below the tornado suddenly opened his eyes. He looked down at the endless dark abyss. At this moment, there was an extremely frightening aura continuously gathering and rising. That might shook the heavens. A deep solemnness surfaced on Xiao Yan's somewhat pale face at this moment. He had yet to recover at this moment, But something had clearly happened to the third Hall Master duo that caused their auras to become so frightening. If they were to fight at this moment, it was likely that Xiaoyan would have difficulty winning. Currently, this aura was becoming increasingly powerful. It was likely too late for Xiaoyan to withdraw even if he wanted to. Since there was no way to retreat, the only method now was to forcefully fight with these two people. With this thought in his mind, Xiaoyan also slowly stopped circulating the flame archi method in his body. The aura of his entire body suddenly shook. His body flashed and once again stood in the empty space. He adjusted his condition to the best possible state and quietly waited for the appearance of the two people below. Bang! An explosive bang was emitted from the endless deep abyss below Xiaoyan. The originally incomparably deep empty space once again shattered with a bang under this sound. Immediately, Xiaoyan saw a 1,000-foot wide dark black doqi-like pillar pass through the restraints of space in an instant and arrive in front of Xiaoyan. An attack suddenly smashed toward Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan's expression was involuntarily startled. It was likely that even the third Hall Master at his peak condition would not be able to unleash such a swift and violent attack. What exactly happened? From the looks of it, that old ghost you do should have yet to come out. However, why is the third Hall Master's aura so powerful? This thought swiftly flashed across Xiaoyan's heart. However, he no longer had the mood to bother about these things. The attack in front of him had already arrived in front of him. It was merely 10 feet away from Xiaoyan. Sky Absolute Step. Open. In a moment of desperation, the do-chi within Xiaoyan's body wildly swept out. His feet moved and the Sky Absolute Step was instantly unleashed to its limit. Without any sound, the empty space around Xiaoyan's body instantly collapsed. Xiaoyan's body also instantly disappeared, leaving behind a substance-like afterimage. Before that afterimage could disappear, that earth-shaking attack suddenly struck across the sky. Everywhere it passed, everything turned into a deathly silent void. It caused one to feel a wave of terror surge into one's heart, something that was difficult to erase. TSK 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 TSK. Xiaoyan, today you will definitely belong to the old me. The old me also advises you to seal your own cultivation as soon as possible and make a trip with the old me. That way you can avoid suffering this physical pain. Xiaoyan's body had just appeared in the sky. He had yet to move when the third Hall Master's figure, which was wrapped in a black fog, had already appeared a couple of dozen feet in front of him. He faced Xiaoyan from a distance and smiled as he looked at the solemn-faced Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan also instantly saw the third Hall Master when he raised his eyes. His originally solemn expression instantly became incomparably solemn. At this moment, the third Hall Master's strength had already far surpassed his previous strength. The strength of his aura had likely already reached the intermediate 8-star half-martial emperor level. His strength had far surpassed Xiaoyan's. In addition to Xiaoyan's current condition, it was likely impossible for him to escape from the third Hall Master's hands. Fighting with his life on the line was Xiaoyan's only way out at this moment. If his luck was still acceptable, he might still have a chance to survive. Otherwise, he would end up in a situation where he would never be able to recover. In merely an instant, thousands of thoughts flashed across Xiaoyan's mind. A determined expression surged into his eyes as he looked at the third Hall Master. In today's battle, if the third Hall Master did not die, then he, the Flame Emperor, would fall. He would definitely go all out in this battle. Humph. Based on your understanding of me, do you think that I will accept my fate? Hearing this, the third Hall Master could not help but frown slightly. However, soon after he relaxed his brows. He naturally knew Xiaoyan's temperament very well. In that case, Xiaoyan's words meant that he was going to start the battle. TSK 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 TSK. You are indeed worthy of being called the Flame Emperor Xiaoyan. This courage is really not something that an ordinary person can match. It is likely that only you are able to remain so imposing in this life and death situation. There's no need to say anything more. Although I can see that your aura is that of an 8-star half-martial emperor, there is clearly another tyrannical aura within your body that is still resisting. If I'm not wrong, that aura belongs to that old ghost, you do. In response to the third Hall Master's endless procrastination, the corners of Xiaoyan's mouth curled up into a cold smile as he coldly said, "Aha, the Flame Emperor is indeed the Flame Emperor. In front of you, our methods are as clear as our understanding of you. There are no secrets at all. Humph, it is only because I have seen too much of it. You damn things always like to steal souls. Tisk tisk. There will come a day when you will understand that in the face of great strength, all methods are just a method of survival." Before his voice sounded, the third Hall Master suddenly flipped his hand across the air. Wild and violent black dou qi surged and churned like a tidal wave. In an instant, it transformed into a large hand in front of the third hall master. A palm suddenly smashed toward Xiaoyan. The instant this large palm attacked, Xiaoyan's expression had already changed drastically. The space around him had actually been completely sealed the instant the large palm attacked. Dodging this attack was completely a pipe dream. Damn it, looks like I can only face him head-on. Yellow spring palm. Not daring to underestimate it, Xiaoyan's mind moved, and from the still somewhat empty vortex in his body, waves of extremely pure dou qi quickly followed the route of the qi method in Xiaoyan's body and circulated into his palm. With an explosive cry, the yellow spring palm was unleashed by Xiaoyan. It also transformed into a towering flame palm against the wind. The palm violently smashed toward the black heaven ascending palm. Tsk. At this moment, there is not much dou qi left in your body. How can you fight the old me with such a weak palm? Demonic cloud palm break? As the third hall master let out a low cry, the large heaven ascending palm, which had already arrived in front of Xiaoyan, suddenly spread out a circle of dense black fog. It collided with Xiaoyan's yellow spring palm. Crack. A clear sound was emitted from the empty space. The circle of black fog was subsequently broken apart. An even more frightening force shot out and instantly broke Xiaoyan's yellow spring palm with a single blow. Even though this was the case, the force did not diminish as it swiftly blasted toward Xiaoyan. Seeing this scene, the expression on Xiaoyan's face instantly became so solemn that it seemed as though water could be wrung out of it. The aura of Xiaoyan's body suddenly shook. The heavenly flame in his body poured out. He clenched his hand across the air, and the endless heavenly flame transformed into a large fire ruler. Without any hesitation, Xiaoyan held the large fire ruler in one hand and pulled it close to him. Both of his hands held the ruler's hilt. Both of his arms suddenly moved, and the beautiful large fire ruler swiftly began to circle around Xiaoyan's body. A seemingly substance-like heavenly flame barrier also appeared around Xiaoyan's body, firmly protecting him within. Six-joint body flowing ruler. The moment the six-joint body flowing ruler was displayed, the strong and ferocious force also violently smashed onto the heavenly flame barrier. Bang! With a loud bang, Xiaoyan's body, which was standing horizontally in the empty space, involuntarily flew back by 10,000 feet. Only then did he stabilize his body with great difficulty. Even his arm, which was holding the large ruler, felt a bone-breaking pain. Xiaoyan clenched his teeth tightly. His eyes stared intently at the large palm that was smashing toward him. The dou qi in his body suddenly poured out, forcefully suppressing the pain on both of his arms. His hand, which was holding the large ruler, once again waved it. The large ruler stood horizontally beside Xiaoyan. The dou qi in his body surged out from his palm and covered the entire large ruler, causing it to appear incomparably gorgeous. Flame. Devouring. Ruler. Xiaoyan suddenly let out an explosive cry toward the sky. His hand, which was holding the large ruler, suddenly exerted force and swept it horizontally toward the large palm. 1,000-foot-wide heavenly flame wave carried a frightening monstrous might as it violently smashed toward the large palm. Bang! An earth-shaking explosion suddenly swept apart from the two dou skills. Soon after, a monstrous wave that carried a vast heavenly might swept in all directions. The bodies of Xiaoyan and the third hall master were sent flying by this huge wave over 500 kilometers. Xiaoyan's body was forcefully stopped in the air. That powerful strength caused the injuries that Xiaoyan had been suppressing earlier to suddenly erupt at this moment. A large mouthful of blood. Only at this moment were the two of them able to clearly see just how great the strength of these two dou skills was after they exploded. The frightening explosion caused a mushroom cloud, which was like an ancient tree that covered the sky, to rise from the middle. Under this mushroom cloud, this entire world was completely covered within it. Due to the presence of the heavenly flame, this mushroom cloud appeared to be half a blazing flame while the other half was a darkness that could swallow the empty space. Xiaoyan's heart once again tightened when he saw this. His all-out attack was only able to break this large palm. If this were to continue, it was likely that he would really die here today. Xiaoyan's body flashed. He unleashed the sky absolute step with all his might. The little dou qi in his body was also completely squeezed out. His body swiftly flashed as he held the large ruler with both hands and suddenly smashed it toward the third hall master with all his might. Given the third hall master's current peak condition, every action of Xiaoyan's was basically seen by him. It was impossible for Xiaoyan to forcefully collide with him. However, when the third hall master saw Xiao Yan's crazy expression, a mocking expression surged deep within his eyes. Ha! Xiao Yan completely ignored the feeling of exhaustion in his body. The giddiness that was transmitted from his mind was also forcefully suppressed by him as he wildly smashed toward the third hall master without any regard for his life. Humph! The third hall master let out a cold snort. His eyes stared at Xiao Yan, completely ignoring the large fire ruler that was flying toward him. The third hall master waited until the large ruler was in front of his face and the searing hot aura invaded his body before he suddenly turned his body. The large ruler pressed close to the third hall master's chest as it smashed down. A feeling of danger immediately surged into Xiao Yan's heart when he saw this scene. However, the action of his hand was clearly not something that he could control at this moment. The third hall master also used this opportunity to ruthlessly slap his palm forward and violently strike Xiao Yan's chest. A chi sound was mixed with a few clear sounds of bones breaking. Xiao Yan bent his body and spat out a large mouthful of fresh blood. His body flew backwards uncontrollably. The third hall master clearly did not want to let Xiao Yan off so easily. Before Xiao Yan could stop his body, the third hall master's figure once again appeared behind Xiao Yan. Another palm ruthlessly met with Xiao Yan's body that was flying backwards. Bang! With a bang sound, Xiao Yan's body once again turned around and continued to fly forward. He was like a football that continuously flew forward. Fresh blood was also freely spat out from Xiao Yan's mouth. At this moment, Xiao Yan was truly like a lamp that had run out of oil. He could only be mercilessly toyed with by the third hall master. Bang! With another bang sound, Xiao Yan's body flew backwards by 10,000 feet. This time, the third hall master did not chase after him. After all, from the third hall master's point of view, Xiao Yan was already unable to escape from his palm. Since he had played enough, there was no need to continue. If Xiao Yan died, he would really be unable to answer to his superiors. Xiao Yan also stabilized his body with great difficulty. His eyes were filled with ruthlessness as he looked at the third hall master. However, under this ruthlessness there was also some helplessness. At this point, I'm afraid that I can't care so much. Although I don't know if it will be effective, I can only try my best. Xiao Yan forcefully endured the pain and weakness brought about by the serious injuries on his body. He clenched his teeth tightly, emitting waves of creaking sounds. Fresh blood continuously flowed out from the corner of his mouth. His palms, which were also stained with blood, slowly gathered strength. After a few breaths, he suddenly clenched his palms. The pain in his body seemed to have disappeared in an instant. His aura suddenly fluctuated. His hands were held in front of his chest. His fingers swiftly moved and mysterious symbols were formed one after another. With a thought, the light in Xiao Yan's eyes suddenly shook. Following this, he let out an explosive cry in his heart. Clan Tattoo appear. Chapter 96. Clan Tattoo appear. An explosive cry was emitted from Xiao Yan's heart. The Do Di bloodline within his body, which had been silent for 10 years, had finally erupted today. The mysterious ancient clan tattoo once again surfaced between Xiao Yan's brows. It merged with the fire seal, causing it to appear unusually mysterious. A majestic aura that was filled with an ancient aura spread from Xiao Yan's body the moment the clan tattoo appeared, causing the boundless sky to tremble. The ancient aura was really terrifying. Even until now, it still caused the world to be extremely shocked. From this, one could imagine just how powerful the ancient humans were. The purple-gold Do Di bloodline swiftly swelled within the blood vessels within Xiao Yan's body. Wave after wave of powerful and pure energy spluttered out and galloped within Xiao Yan's body. The purple-gold Do Di bloodline within Xiao Yan's blood vessels agglomerated into a purple-gold blood dragon in an instant. The blood dragon swiftly moved through Xiao Yan's blood vessels. Wherever it passed, a purple-gold brilliant light would scatter. This light passed through Xiao Yan's blood vessels and merged into the damaged internal organs and bones within Xiao Yan's body. In merely a couple of breaths, the bones and organs that had been injured by the third hall master had clearly recovered. The aura of the blood dragon exploded. Its body flashed and it actually arrived within the vortex within Xiao Yan's body. As the blood dragon swiftly circled, it also caused the vortex within Xiao Yan's body to involuntarily circulate. The flame art chi method was also circulating at a frightening speed that it had never experienced before. In the outside world, the expression on Xiao Yan's face changed slightly. His eyes swept over the natural energy that had become as turbulent as the waves of the deep sea due to the activation of the Do Di bloodline within his body. Surprise involuntarily flashed across the depths of his eyes. The Dou Di bloodline was actually this powerful. Even with Xiao Yan's current strength, he was actually able to create such a vast aura. It was no wonder that the 8 ancient clans placed such importance on the strength of the bloodline. The bloodline of a Dou Di was really this frightening. A thought passed through his mind and the heavenly flame within his body instantly swept out, completely wrapping Xiao Yan within it. The natural energy was also completely absorbed into the vortex within Xiao Yan's body under the frightening refinement of the heavenly flame. In merely a moment, the empty vortex within Xiao Yan's body was once again replaced by an extremely pure Dou Qi. At this moment, Xiao Yan's strength had already reached the level of a 4-star half-martial emperor. However, even with this being the case, Xiao Yan's aura was still rapidly rising. As his aura continued to rise, it told Xiao Yan that the end of this aura was far from here. While Xiao Yan was activating the Dou Di bloodline within his body, the Saint Blood Crystal, which contained the fate of the entire Xiao clan, suddenly emitted a dazzling golden light at this moment in a glorious large hall tens of thousands of kilometers away. It illuminated the originally bright and beautiful large hall until it appeared like a glass celestial palace. A human figure wrapped in a black robe quietly appeared in front of the Saint Blood Crystal the moment the golden light flickered. A pair of sharp old eyes under the black robe also emitted a surprised glint. This is the bloodline strength within that person's body that has been activated. From the looks of it, that person has likely met a great enemy. The person under the black robe used a somewhat hoarse old voice to mutter to himself. From the sound of his voice, this old man was surprisingly the first elder who had ordered Xiao Mingyuan to leave the clan back then. However, at this moment, the first elder was extremely worried in his heart. The only explanation for activating the bloodline strength for no reason was that this person had met with a great calamity. Helpless, he could only activate the D bloodline within his body to ensure his safety. Third brother. You have left the clan for such a long time, yet you are still unable to find that person. This time around you have really gone overboard. A bright golden light was reflected in the first elder's eyes. Both of his eyes stared intently at the Saint Blood Crystal. It was a long while later before he finally opened his mouth and spoke in a somewhat furious voice. Someone come. A low cry was transmitted from within the large hall. However, in an instant, a dark black human figure appeared behind the first elder without any forewarning. He supported himself with one hand on the ground and knelt on one knee. He was silent. Although he was behind the first elder, he appeared to be in front of the first elder. The first elder did not pay much attention to him as he opened his mouth and spoke. Go and find Xiao Mingyuan. Tell him to quickly search for that person. If he cannot find him in the middle region, then go to the southern region. If he cannot find him in the southern region, then search all the regions for me. No matter what, you must find him and bring him back. A furious voice was transmitted, causing the kneeling person's body to involuntarily tremble. In his heart, he knew that the first elder was truly furious this time around. Not daring to be negligent, that person nodded slightly before his body flashed again and swiftly fled the large hall. Within the large hall, the first elder once again stood quietly in the same spot. After a long while, his body gradually became illusory and quietly disappeared from the large hall. The third hall master stared intently at Xiao Yan. His eyes were filled with astonishment. Xiao Yan's method at this moment had actually forcefully raised his physical strength by 2 stars. First, there was the extermination fire body, and now there was the bloodline strength. If these two were to be activated at the same time, how terrifying would the power be? It was likely that just thinking about it would cause one's entire body to turn cold. In merely a moment, the aura and strength all over Xiao Yan's body had already changed from its previous weak appearance. His entire body's aura was like a rainbow that shot towards the sky. His strength could break through the heavens in an instant. Even when compared to old Ghost Yu Du at his peak condition, he was not inferior. Xiao Yan let out a long roar towards the sky. 1,000 feet wide fire pillars shot out from Xiao Yan's mouth. It penetrated through the empty space and pierced into the endless empty space, causing the space to fluctuate. By the time Xiao Yan turned his head and took a look, the pair of dim eyes from before had already disappeared. At this moment, it was a pair of flaming eyes that were scattered with a dazzling fire light. With a slight turn, the heavenly flame that could soar into the sky flew out from Xiao Yan's flaming eyes and burned the sky. When the third hall master saw this scene, he was extremely shocked. How could he dare to let Xiao Yan continue? His body moved and a thick black fog rippled out from all over his body. In a flash, he had already appeared outside of the heavenly flame around Xiao Yan's body. Humph! False bravado. Today this old man will definitely bring you back to my sect. Xiao Yan, it's best that you don't try to struggle in vain. Come and take this old man's palm. Sky Demon Palm. The third Hall Master struck with his palm and a frightening black fog surged out. The Sky Demon Palm that the third Hall Master had unleashed once again soared with the wind. In an instant, it turned into a large palm that was 1,000 feet in size. It covered the sky as it violently slammed toward Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan used his pair of flaming eyes to sweep over the Sky Demon Palm that was violently slamming toward him. His nose emitted a cold snort. The corner of his mouth was lifted into a cold smile as he said, "False bravado? Humph humph, from the way I see it, you are the one who is false bravado. You are merely a useless person who only has looks." Without waiting for the third Hall Master to react, Xiaoyan's body turned and the Do Qi in his body swiftly surged out. The heavenly flame also instantly spread over Xiaoyan's palm. His palm violently smashed toward the Sky Demon Palm of the third Hall Master. Yellow Spring Palm. A palm that was only the size of a human's palm flew out when Xiaoyan's palm struck out. The space instantly collapsed wherever the Yellow Spring Palm passed. A dark, deep, empty space appeared behind the Yellow Spring Palm. The Yellow Spring Palm carried an overwhelming might as it violently smashed toward the Sky Demon Palm of the third Hall Master. The Sky Demon Palm merely lasted for a couple of breaths when the two collided before it burst apart with a loud bang. Xiaoyan also moved at this moment. His body flashed and appeared in front of the third Hall Master. His fist violently smashed toward the third Hall Master's face. Grade 8 Smash. The flaming arm that was covered by the heavenly flame passed by with a bang. The third Hall Master's skinny face also felt a fiery pain. His heart did not dare to underestimate the attack. His body swiftly pulled back as his fist met Xiaoyan's enormous flaming fist. Sky Demon Fist. In an instant, the two fists had already collided. Xiaoyan's body suddenly shook as a powerful force suddenly poured out from his fist and smashed toward the third Hall Master. The third Hall Master naturally did not dare to be careless. The Do Qi in his body surged out and gathered on his fist. He did his best to block Xiaoyan's powerful and overbearing punch. However, it was still a pity. At this moment, Xiaoyan was at his peak condition and his strength had far surpassed his previous strength. With just the strength of a 3-star half-martial emperor, Xiaoyan was able to fight an intense battle with the third Hall Master. Currently, Xiaoyan's strength had reached the level of a 5-star half-martial emperor. Even if the third Hall Master had the strength of an 8-star half-martial emperor, one should not forget that Xiaoyan's physical strength was truly terrifying. The two complemented each other. How could the third Hall Master contend against Xiaoyan's full strength? A mantis trying to stop a chariot. Get lost. Grade 8 Smash. Explode. Bang. An earth-shaking explosion resounded across this place. At this moment, even this place was no longer able to restrain the two. The battle between the two was no longer something that could be controlled by the world. As the explosion sounded, the third Hall Master's body fell like a meteorite and once again smashed into the endless abyss. You want to retreat? Do you really think that you can retreat? A cold snort was emitted from Xiaoyan's nose. His body once again shook abruptly. A beautiful heavenly flame suddenly agglomerated on his back. In an instant, it turned into a pair of beautiful flame wings. The footwork under Xiaoyan's feet changed. His body, which was standing in the empty air, instantly disappeared. At the same time, the third Hall Chief's swiftly falling body suddenly paused in the air. Soon after, he turned into a human cannonball that shot toward the sky with a bang. However, from the looks of it, he appeared to be in an extremely miserable state. Again. Grade 8 Smash. Bang. Bang. In merely a moment, the third Hall Chief, who had been in an aggressive manner earlier, was currently being beaten by Xiaoyan left and right like a dead dog. An unknown number of bones in his body had been broken. Fresh blood scattered over the sky like rain. Just looking at it caused one to feel a chill surge into one's heart. Even though this was the case, he still did his best to dodge Xiaoyan's attacks. Even so, his distorted bloody face actually revealed a vicious and ruthless smile, which caused one to feel incomparably strange. Bang! Another explosion sounded. Xiaoyan sent the third Hall Master flying thousands of miles with a punch. His body once again flashed and appeared 1,000 feet in front of the third Hall Master. His hands were behind his back. A pair of eyes, which were filled with bright flames, calmly looked at the third Hall Master. The corners of his mouth lifted into a cold smile, but he did not say anything. The third Hall Master's body, which was covered in blood, suddenly shook. The black fog that lingered around his body was instantly absorbed into his body. He let out a savage laugh and immediately looked at Xiaoyan with a murderous intent in his eyes. TSK, Flame Emperor Xiaoyan, you have been smart all your life. However, only today will you be foolish. I've just suffered a loss at your hands, but you've suffered a second time. The third Hall Master's eyes were filled with a brutal murderous intent. His pair of sinister old eyes were filled with madness as he stared at Xiaoyan and laughed maniacally. Do you think I'll be at a disadvantage twice? May I know what you mean? Xiaoyan's eyes flickered deep within his eyes. The corners of his mouth lifted into a playful smile as he looked at the third Hall Master and slowly asked. The eyes of the third Hall Master became incomparably savage when he heard this. It was as though Xiaoyan was already in his bag. Xiaoyan, do you really think that I, an 8-star Ban Emperor, will be suppressed by you, a 5-star Ban Emperor, until I am in such a state? Xiaoyan did not speak. He only quietly looked at the third Hall Master. He knew that the third Hall Master would give him an answer. You're wrong. With my strength, although I do not dare to say that I can capture you with one hand, I can also do it if I am given enough time. And you have coincidentally given me this time. Before his voice sounded, the third Hall Master slowly lifted both of his hands. A mysterious seal suddenly appeared in his palms. From the looks of this seal, it was the mysterious underworld soul-devouring palm that the old flame demon ghost had displayed back then. This palm technique is originally an E-class Do technique. Although I am unable to completely unleash it due to my lack of strength, if I were to use all of my strength, it would definitely not be inferior to a high-level human class Do technique. Xiaoyan, no matter what, you will definitely fall into my hands today. Xiaoyan's expression remained extremely calm when he heard this. High-level human class Do technique, huh? He seemed to have one as well. Moreover, if one were to really talk about it, a high-level human class Do technique that had transformed into a Do technique was not something that an ordinary high-level human class Do technique could compare with. Xiaoyan smiled faintly. His hand, which was behind him, was slowly withdrawn in front of his chest. He flipped his palm and a fire lotus that was burning with a brilliant flame appeared in Xiaoyan's hand. Due to the absence of the nihility-devouring flame, the merged heavenly flames had become a substitute for the nihility-devouring flame. In this way, the strength of this angry Buddha lotus flame should not be inferior to the four-colored fire lotus from back then. Moreover, due to it being merged with many heavenly flames, the strength of this fire lotus might be even greater than before. When the third Hall Master saw the fire lotus in Xiaoyan's hand, a shock immediately surged onto his originally arrogant face. It was unexpected that while he was scheming against Xiaoyan, Xiaoyan was actually using him to scheme against him. However, this thought merely lasted for an instant before it was completely suppressed by the third Hall Master. His shocked face once again recovered its arrogance. His face was filled with disdain as he looked at the fire lotus in Xiaoyan's hand. The corner of his mouth was lifted into a cold smile as he coldly laughed. Xiaoyan, I was wondering what kind of frightening preparation you had. It turns out that you merely have this angry Buddha lotus flame that is comparable to a low-level human class Do technique. If this is the case, you will definitely not be able to escape from my hands today. Xiaoyan's face remained calm in the face of this. In the next instant, a murderous intent surged into his eyes as he looked at the third Hall Master. His palm pushed the fire lotus in his hand toward the third Hall Master. At the same time, his mouth laughed coldly as he spoke. I will only know exactly how strong it is after I see it. Let me see just how strong your high human class Do technique, mysterious underworld soul-devouring palm is. The third Hall Master was extremely confident in his heart at this moment. He was naturally not afraid of Xiaoyan's attack. The corner of his mouth was lifted into a cold smile. A brutal murderous intent swiftly surged within his eyes. He unleashed the mysterious underworld soul-devouring palm in his hand and charged toward Xiaoyan's angry Buddha lotus flame. Since you are in such a hurry to seek death, the old me shall fulfill your wish. The palm-sized mysterious underworld soul-devouring palm swiftly swelled in this empty space. In merely an instant, it once again turned into an enormous palm that reached the sky. It violently smashed toward Xiaoyan. However, Xiaoyan was unconcerned about this. His expression carried a solemn expression as he looked at the angry Buddha lotus flame that had already flown out. Ever since the last time, Xiaoyan was already extremely clear that his control of the angry Buddha lotus flame was only limited to before the third wave of attacks. If it was completely unleashed, even in this condition Xiaoyan would definitely not be able to escape. Hence, at this moment the only thing that Xiaoyan paid attention to was not the third hall master, nor was it the mysterious underworld soul-devouring palm. Instead, it was this destructive angry Buddha lotus flame that Xiaoyan had created. In an instant, the angry Buddha lotus flame and the mysterious underworld soul-devouring palm were merely a couple of dozen feet apart. Both of them were man-class high-level Do skills. The empty space where they passed had already turned into a dark black deep darkness. The sky also repeatedly trembled and roared under the frightening pressure of these two. The area within a 5,000-kilometer radius was deathly silent. There was no sign of life. That Mu Ling had already left this place and his whereabouts were unknown. Next it was up to Xiaoyan and the third hall master. Two super Do skills were unleashed together. If they were careless, the two of them might be Tang Tang Bandi experts, but they would still not be able to escape death. Hence, the battle today completely depended on fate. An instant later, the entire sky was finally covered by a glaring white glow. Even the deep mountains and old forests tens of thousands of kilometers away were illuminated by this white glow until they were unable to look directly at it. The people within the cities also felt an extremely frightening pressure sweep over in an instant. Even those people who had been in high positions for a long time finally knelt on the ground in fear. They did not even dare to breathe loudly. At this moment, a roaring sound that resounded over the sky suddenly sounded in the area where Xiaoyan and the third hall master were located. Immediately, one could see a frightening flame wave sweep over the entire sky. Even with the strength of the third hall master, he was not lucky enough to escape being struck by this attack. With a grug sound, fresh blood was wildly spat out from the mouth of the third hall master. His body also involuntarily shot backwards. The aura of his entire body instantly became sluggish at this moment. However, this was not the end. Before the first wave of flame wave could completely sweep over, another wave was once again shot out. This time around, the third hall master was really helpless. This second attack once again smashed into his chest. Bang! Another wave of extremely ferocious flame wave swept over. The entire world was in a kind of blazing heat. Everything that had form was turned into a vacuum of nothingness. After the third wave, the third hall master was finally seriously injured. Once the final wave completely engulfed him, the third hall master would definitely disappear from this continent. Roar! Damn it! This old man is not willing to accept this, not willing to accept this. Flame Emperor Xiaoyan. Today, even if this old man dies, I will definitely drag you down with me. With a furious roar, the third hall master's body rapidly expanded. Immediately after, an earth-shaking roar sounded. Another wave of frightening pitch-black energy wave swept out and violently collided with the fourth wave of flame wave from the angry Buddha lotus flame. The self-destruction of the full power of an 8-star half-martial emperor. This kind of power was really unparalleled. Even if the fourth wave of the angry Buddha lotus flame was completely unleashed, it was still instantly broken by the third hall master's life-risking attack. In an instant, after the third hall master exchanged his life for Xiaoyan's angry Buddha lotus flame, this attack from the third hall master was finally completely suppressed by the third hall master. As for this part of the sky, it had turned into a pitch-black nothingness for a long time. Ugh, the ending is not good. Because a lot of the content was deleted, there are some things that were not clearly expressed. However, I still want to add this to my collection. I beg of everyone, please add this to your collection. Additionally, if you are interested, you can join the group created by Time. Group number 47666876 Chapter 97. 2 months later, southwest border, Savage Ancient City. Xiaoyan stood outside of the Savage Ancient City. His eyes looked into the distance at the ancient city that was built from a piece of mysterious rock. An endless stream of human traffic entered and exited the city gate like ants. If one were to carefully observe, one would discover that most of these people were entering and very few were exiting. Are these people all here for the alchemist conference? I wonder how strong the alchemists here are. Lin Fan asked. Xiaoyan had an indifferent smile on his face as he looked at the ancient city that was filled with an ancient aura. He softly muttered before his body moved and flew towards Savage Ancient City. At this moment, Xiaoyan could already be considered to have complete control over the initial wind movement Heaven's End. If Xiaoyan were to unleash his full speed, it was likely that he would not need to be afraid even if he met an ordinary 7-star Bandi. If he were to encounter a 6-star half-emperor, Xiaoyan might even be able to forcefully kill him if he were to go all out. From this, one could see just how frightening the might of this sky extinction step was. Just the initial mastery of the wind movement stage was already able to allow Xiaoyan, a mere 3-star Bandi, to face a 7-star bandit. Just how frightening would it be if he were to master this sky absolute step to the complete mastery stage? The might of trampling the heavens, the sky-splitting extinction step. This sentence was most likely not just a casual remark. A moment later, Xiaoyan's figure was strolling within the flood of human flow in savage ancient city. As the alchemist grand meeting drew closer, the outstanding talents from various places also began to gather towards savage ancient city. Xiaoyan naturally did not pay too much attention to these people. After arriving at savage ancient city, Xiaoyan's first task was to quickly find the weapon refiner that Luo Jin had mentioned back then. In Xiaoyan's heart, he only wanted to repair his heavy Xian ruler. Other matters were not important in Xiaoyan's eyes. Of course, leaving the southern region could also be considered an important matter in Xiaoyan's heart. After all, regardless of where Xiaoyan went or to what extent he had repaired the heavy Xian ruler, if Xiaoyan did not possess sufficient strength, the destruction of the heavy Xian ruler was only a matter of time. This was something that Xiaoyan did not wish to see. As he thought in this manner, Xiaoyan's footsteps unknowingly became a little faster. In a moment he had already arrived at the city area of Savage Ancient City. When he arrived at this place, noise unceasingly filled his ears. Under the probing of Xiaoyan's spiritual strength, the average strength of the practitioners here was much better than that of Qingyang City. In this place, the weakest practitioner was actually comparable to the central plains of the Douqi continent. They were all Do Huangs. Among them there was no lack of Do Zongs. Even the elite Do Zuns, who could be called overlord in Qingyang City, were just like ordinary people in this place. Moreover, under Xiaoyan's probing, there were no less than 10 elite Do Shungs. Such strength could be considered quite a good faction in the borders of the continent. These were naturally nothing in Xiaoyan's eyes. However, if he thought about it carefully, he would realize that this was merely the most barren place on the continent. Yet, the strength of the people here had already reached the Do Huang class. They were not the least bit inferior to the 3 valleys of the Douqi continent. When the 3 valleys were mentioned, Xiaoyan recalled the Burning Flame Valley at this moment. Thinking back, his ancestor Xiao Xian had already told him that the Burning Flame Valley was considered one of the top factions on the continent during the ancient times. The Burning Flame Valley had once produced an elite Do Di. Although he was ignorant back then and did not know that the so-called Do Di they spoke of was merely a bandit in this Yuanwu continent, regardless of how one put it, this still meant that the people from the Burning Flame Valley had once come to this Yuanwu continent during the ancient times. However, he did not know if he would be able to meet them now. The corner of Xiaoyan's mouth was slightly lifted into a smile as he sighed emotionally in his heart. If they were fated, they would naturally meet. Why should he be anxious about everything? After recovering, Xiaoyan's body, which was about to continue walking forward, suddenly paused. His brows were also involuntarily knit together. His body slowly turned around and his eyes looked at a building beside him. This building was shaped like a tower. It had an ancient feel. At a glance, for words would suddenly leap out of one's heart. Rich and overbearing. This pavilion was shockingly built from top-quality black metal wood. On its exterior, there was a barrier that was personally placed by a bandit. If someone really wanted to forcefully barge in, it was likely that it would be impossible unless one possessed the strength of a true Do Di. A glint flickered in Xiaoyan's eyes. His gaze also slowly shifted downwards. Finally, it paused on the signboard above the door. On the signboard, the words Hidden Cloud Pavilion were written in flamboyant calligraphy. The words were written in a very imposing manner. The moment Xiaoyan's gaze swept across the 3 large words, his eyes narrowed slightly. The 3 large words seemed to contain a kind of heaven-supporting strength. Even with his current strength, he was actually as insignificant as an ant in front of it. This Yunin pavilion was actually another huge object. Xiaoyan's expression changed slightly. His gaze swiftly shifted away from the signboard. This was because after feeling a little surprised, he finally calmed down the emotions in his heart. His body moved and he took large strides toward the Yunin pavilion. Xiaoyan felt that there might be something he needed in this place. The moment he stepped into the Yunin pavilion, the noisy outside suddenly quieted down. This Yunin pavilion was like another world. Xiaoyan didn't mind this at all. To him, this kind of thing was too normal. The only thing he wasn't used to was that the moment he stepped into the Yunin pavilion, the light in front of him dimmed. Xiaoyan habitually narrowed his eyes for a moment. Only then did he take in a deep breath and take in everything within the Yunin pavilion. After he recovered, Xiaoyan immediately smelled an extremely rich pill fragrance. The pill fragrance was so rich that it even formed clouds in the air. At this moment, the Yunin pavilion looked like a paradise on earth. Xiaoyan couldn't help but rub his nose. Even so, he couldn't help but sneeze in the end. This kind of rich pill fragrance was really hard for people to accept. He really did not know how these people were able to endure it. They were actually able to turn a blind eye to such a rich pill fragrance. Xiaoyan sighed in his heart. He didn't pay any more attention to them. As he looked around, he saw that this incomparably spacious hall was already occupied by many transparent crystal counters. The counters were filled with all kinds of medicinal ingredients. At this moment, these crystal counters were already surrounded by a large crowd. The interior of this large hall was also divided into a medicinal ingredient area and a medicinal pill area. However, these medicinal ingredients and medicinal pills, which could be considered great treasures in the eyes of everyone in front of him, were merely third-rate goods that Xiaoyan did not even care about. After casually looking around, Xiaoyan moved his feet and headed towards the second floor. When he reached the staircase, Xiaoyan was blocked by two old men in front of him. The eyebrows of the two old men involuntarily knit slightly when they saw that Xiaoyan was actually walking toward them. From the looks of it, it appeared that he wanted to go up to the second floor. Immediately they looked at Xiaoyan. One of the old men revealed a kind smile on his face as he spoke to Xiaoyan. If you wish to go to the second floor, you must possess the strength of a Do Zone. Xiaoyan merely smiled faintly at this. He had experienced these rules countless times and was naturally incomparably clear about them. The truly good things in this Union Pavilion were definitely on the second floor. His footsteps did not stop. The aura on Xiaoyan's body suddenly swept out. However, this aura was many times weaker than usual. When the two old men sensed the aura on Xiaoyan's body, their expressions involuntarily changed. Surprise was revealed in their eyes when they looked at Xiaoyan. This was the first time that they had seen such a young Dozong in this ancient wasteland city. That's right. Under the spiritual perception of these two old men, the aura that Xiaoyan was currently emitting was indeed that of a Dozong. This was also something that Xiaoyan had intentionally done. After all, if he were to really release his true strength, Xiaoyan was not certain just how big of a commotion it would cause. Moreover, this Union Pavilion was clearly not an ordinary faction. It was best for him not to attract too much attention. However, although Xiaoyan had unintentionally attracted the attention of others, when he released the aura of a Dozong, the expressions of the few Do Huang class cultivators, who were mocking him when they saw him preparing to go up to the second floor, appeared extremely interesting at this moment. This included many other people. At this moment, their gazes were also focused on Xiaoyan, this young Dozong expert. It was not as though they had never seen a Dozong of this age. Recently, there had indeed been a couple of 20-plus-year-old Dozongs in this ancient wasteland city. However, those few were all members of famous aristocratic families. Any one of them would cause everyone to feel that they were familiar with them. At this moment, Xiaoyan appeared to be an exception. Xiaoyan was naturally not too concerned